This is The Gorge. This is the podcast where my friend Sarah, my friend Saturn, and my friend Oates gorge ourselves in overanalyzing a topic.
I like the word salad going on there.
my friend, and me.
That's right, yeah. The Gorge is brought to you by Patreon. That's patreon.com/thegorge, where for just $5 a month, you gain access to not one, but two entire podcasts. $5 gives you takeout, a monthly commentary track where Ben and I decide we don't feel like playing anything, so we talk over something we're watching instead. And $2 is our smorgasbord tier. It is everything else that is not takeout. So
it's everything and nothing at the same time.
That's right.
It's a buffet platter.
I'm a proud supporter of the smorgasbord tier because I love eating garbage.
That's right. And folks, it's nothing but garbage in the $2 tier, but like the good kind of garbage, the $2 kind of garbage.
It's like when you go to a Canadian poutine place and you get the garbage plate.
Yeah. And it tastes great, right? That's what you're getting for only $2 a month. And that's at patreon.com/thegorge.
Well, folks, what are we talking about today?
We're here. We're finally here. After many, many years of Ben essentially begging me to talk about the Venture Brothers. How did this even happen? We just got a wild hair up our ass to watch the Venture Brothers.
I insisted that we watch the Venture Brothers, and it quickly devolved into shenanigans and chaos.
That's right. It was a U plan, wasn't it?
We watched Venture Brothers.
We watched Venture Brothers.
The movie came out, and we decided to wait a little bit, and then because it was on our mind.
I never watched the movie, even though I was interested when it came out, because I had never seen the last season, and so I held off, I'll make time for that at some point. And then Oatsy walked up to me with a gun and said, "You're going to make time for it right now." And I said, "You got it, boss."
It basically devolved into, I really wanted to do, a movie night, but we couldn't decide on anything, so I was just like, hey, I got Venture Brothers, and I tried to boot it up on Hulu, and it wasn't on Hulu.
Oh, yeah, because we had been doing anime nights and stuff, and then we just sort of didn't have anything for a while, and we're like, we need to fill the void.
We need to fill the void, and then it was like, okay, it kind of was like, okay, well, we'll watch Venture Brothers once a week. And then what actually happened is basically anytime we had free time and we felt like doing it, someone in the group chat was like, do you want to watch Venture Brothers?
We marathoned all of it in the month of November.
Yeah.
More specifically, we would go Venture Wednesday on any day of the week, whether or not it was Wednesday.
Oh yeah, we just started we started doing a season a day near the end.
Yeah, which unfortunately cram it.
Also, unfortunately for Venture Brothers, not that difficult at a certain point.
A season a day was 4 hours.
Yeah, it's really sad. So the way I think this is gonna work is that we needed this episode, because we can't fit all 7 seasons and the movie of Venture Brothers into one episode. It's a fool's game. So this one I think is the best for talking about early season Venture Brothers. So seasons 1 through 4, which is I think season 3 and 4 are the best seasons in the show. So
I think 4 is definitely up there. I think it's 4 and 7 for me are my favorites.
I'm a sicko. After thinking about it long and hard, season 1 is my favorite.
And it's not valid.
And it's not that the rest of them are bad or anything. God, no, I wouldn't have put up with sitting through 7 seasons of it if I thought the others weren't good.
It's just the format of season 1, right?
Yeah, because there's a lot, and before I get into it, I guess, so you should tell us what your favorite season is.
Oh, we didn't talk about...
I don't think you said.
Well, for me, it's a toss-up between season 2 and season 7.
That makes sense.
Really split between those two.
So I guess if we want, we can red letter media this actually and have us all make our case for why such and such is our favorite season of the first 4.
I think that would work.
So I'll start with 1 since I am its its most valiant champion.
Good Lord.
So the first season, and worth noting, we did not actually watch the pilot.
No,
we never did.
There's a pilot from 2003 that looks. I've seen clips of it. Is very. It's very cheaply animated, even relative to season 1 of Venture Brothers, which is saying something. But my ardent support of season 1 is because this is a season where they have not yet written any checks, and so it is all just writing new checks and just having this very kind of what is relative to the rest of the series constrained beginning cast, right? With the titular Venture Brothers, their father, Rusty, Brock Sampson, the unkillable bodyguard, a robot named Helper who's not really that much of a character after the first season, to be perfectly honest, and then Rusty's nemesis, the Monarch, alongside Dr. Girlfriend and his gaggle of extremely killable henchmen.
Correct.
And that's like it as far as like the established recurring characters go.
Mm-hmm. And because 21 and 24 aren't characters yet.
Right. No, they don't become characters until like basically the end of season 1 with the finale of season 1. And like it creates this energy where it is like the most episodic of the seasons, I think, where it's just like you start with the Venture Brothers in some kind of situation. They're going on some adventure or up to some escapade or whatever else. And there's just like 20 minutes of chaos that ends in a brick joke. And it's just that the entire time. And then like you introduce like, the pirate captain and Dr. Orpheus, and they're all just episode characters. It's like just setting up a whole bunch of bowling pins that they're going to knock down later. And like, so I think there's part of it where it's like, I like season 1 so much, I think because I know a lot of the stuff comes back to roost later on, but because they're getting to write so many funny, interesting new things in season 1, and it's so hectic. Like every episode is moving a mile a minute,
I think the way I would describe it is that season 1 feels the most like an Adult Swim cartoon.
Yeah, it really does.
Like you see season 1 alongside like Aqua Teen and Metalocalypse.
It's incredibly important to note that like the idea of the Venture Brothers was always going to be a Johnny Quest like parody. Jackson in public went on record to say they didn't realize that they actually had the rights to use them until after like Harvey Birdman started becoming a thing, and they were just like, oh, we could have just made it Haji and Johnny Quest and Venture and Race the entire time. And
I think if they had done that, the show would not be nearly as good. Like it would have been one season and done.
I agree. However, you have got to understand those first like 12 episodes are insanely funny, knowing that like nothing would have changed if they had swapped them out.
Here's the thing: the only thing that would have changed, and this might have saved the Venture Brothers in the end. The only thing that would have changed if they could have just made it a continuation of Johnny Quest is they could have just Space Ghost Coast to Coasted it and recycled a bunch of cells from the old Johnny Quest cartoon.
You know what? Now I'm thinking about the world, because like one of the funniest things I love about Cartoon Network's like long and studied history is that the George Lowe Space Ghost just overtook the actual Hanna-Barbera Space Ghost as far as Cartoon Network is concerned, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
As far as anyone is concerned, Space Ghost Coast to Coast is fucking iconic.
Yeah.
Much like Venture Brothers, I've noticed this, by the way, because Venture Brothers' first episode in its main season is this whole, like, Mexico adventure or whatever. Like, they go down to Mexico, Rusty's giving a speech at some university, tries to get in with a doctor to give him some under-the-table painkillers, gets his kidneys stolen, yada yada. There's a whole bunch of shit going on. But it does remind me of the very good intro, the first episode of Space Ghost, where the inexplicable joke is that every so often they'll just pause the episode and translate the line that was just said in Spanish and then continue the episode like nothing happened.
I think the funniest thing ever is that the version we watched had inexplicable French subtitles attached.
It was extremely funny. For the first 2 seasons, For some reason, we got the first 2 seasons of the Venture Brothers off the back of a truck, as you say. And for the first 2 seasons, for some reason, it was like, I guess, the Canadian broadcast or the French broadcast, because it was spoken in English, but all of the text was in French, which really lent itself.
And the first episode was great because there is untranslated Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so it was untranslated Spanish with French subtitles and then English with French subtitles, which was like a perfect joke.
No, it's perfect. Exactly.
It really... I'm almost sad that we didn't actually get the whole experience in the form of the French and or French-Canadian DVD releases, because it really did make it feel that much more like a bootleg cartoon.
Yeah, it feels like something that you would watch. I mean, obviously, it's an Adult Swim cartoon, right? It is something you would watch at 2 a.m. That is just like, what the fuck is this? Which is ultimately what the Venture Brothers is, right? It's a thing you watch late at night when you're young, and you go, what the fuck am I watching? And then it does irreparable damage to your brain for the rest of your life. Oops.
And then 3 seasons in it, you're introduced to like a couple lines of dialogue that just fundamentally change you as a person.
That's right. And suddenly you're like, oh, well, I guess I'm insane now.
I'm sorry, I just had insane flashbacks. Since we're still talking about like the first 4 seasons, there was a networking error on, I think, the season 4 opener. I remember this super clearly, where they played the first half of the season 4 premiere. And then at the 15-minute mark, something happened and it just replayed the first half of the second episode. This only happened on the West Coast broadcast, and all of us were losing our fucking minds.
That makes sense, though.
Which is so funny because that's the episode that's out of order.
Yes, exactly.
We're painting this vivid picture in my mind of a thing I would love to see, which is a season of Venture Brothers that has the same filming gimmick as Pop Team Epic, where they just shoot the same episode twice and then have 2 completely different voice casts.
Well, what you do is you have Doc Hammer and Jackson Public switch characters.
Oh yeah, no, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Can you just imagine 21 and 24 switching voices but having the exact same cadence?
Oh, that's unsettling.
It's so uncanny, but it's perfect.
The other thing I wanted to mention about season 1, because it's just like weird trivia, but it's still an interesting thing, I think, is the second episode of that, Careers in Science. This is an episode that ends up later on, which we'll get to in the second episode of this. Ends up being extraordinarily plot relevant for like whatever Venture Brothers A plot is. Interestingly enough, though, this is the only episode in the entire show that has a written by credit that includes someone other than Doc Hammer and Jackson Public. The story is credited to Ben Edlund, who's the guy who created The Tick.
Yes. No, you're thinking of the wrong episode.
No, I'm looking at the Wikipedia right now.
No, because Saturn, he's the one. He's the one who wrote the Venturestein episode.
Yeah, he wrote the Groovy Gang episode too.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Then Wikipedia. Unless he's
he might have
directing.
Well. He's the only one that that's the only episode that he wrote. The only episode that was not written by Doc Hammer and Jackson Public was the Venturestein episode.
I'm not sure because I'm looking at the episode list on Wikipedia currently. He actually has 2 episode credits. It's that episode and then the later episode that's a sequel to this episode in season 3 or 4 or season 2 actually.
Oh yeah, so that's what it is that you're thinking of like every episode until season 7 is directed by Public, but sometimes written by other people. And this one has Ben Edlund and Doc Hammer writing Careers in Science, but I think the director thing changes, and it's Venturestein that has a different director, which is
I didn't look at Venturestein's, but I was talking about the writers.
Okay, so the Venturestein is the only episode that Doc Hammer and Jackson Public did not write or direct. Basically,
correct.
So Ben Edlund would have written and directed other episodes, but he had one of the 2 with him as well.
So here's the thing. that episode is a solo writing credit for Ben Edlund.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
However, he did also write, like, he was a contributing writer on Careers in Science and the sequel to that, which is, I think, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? Mm-hmm. He wrote that with Doc Hammer, I believe, for both of those. Okay. And I was interested in wondering how that came to be, because Ben Edlund is famously the creator of The Tick, which is a series that both...
is very similar to the Venture Brothers.
Yeah, they have gone on record on saying that is something that was an inspiration of them. What I found out is that in the 90s, Edlund did a indie film with Doc Hammer and his wife Lisa called Crawley. And that's just how they know each other. So they were like, hey, you want to come work on our show? It's kind of got Tick vibes. He's like, oh, hell yeah, dude.
Him and Doc Hammer worked together quite a few times because I don't remember if it's the cartoon or if it's the live action version. But in one of the two, Doc Hammer is like a recurring freelance writer for like the one season.
I think it was both.
It might have been both.
Yeah, I think like they've worked together on multiple things before.
So like they've been friends forever, just like in the business. So like it literally is just him going like, hey, I have my own show now. Do you want to like do some stuff fun? And he's like, yeah, of course. What's it about? And he's like, well, you'll love this. Do you remember The Tick? Oh, yeah.
And it works out, too, because it's a very weird episode that's set up to be a bottle episode, but then isn't.
Extremely not.
Yeah, it's also very tonally weird and kind of funny, but also not.
Sharky's Machine.
I think Careers in Science is like the quintessential early Venture Brothers episode, which is really funny because it was like there is a third guy writing it, right? Like it's not just a Public and Hammer joint. Also, Ben Edlund is involved, but it is like it's kind of the perfect distillation of an early Venture Brothers episode, which is it's taking a concept that is from like your standard boy adventurer kind of format. You're going in space, you're going to a space station, but then like everything kind of surrounding it is what the Venture Brothers is about, which is, as everybody has pointed out, we're not the first person, we won't be the last people to point it out. The Venture Brothers is about failure. And
also Brock Simpson using a lot of sexual innuendo
with a rocket. That's right. And so
this is a tight fit.
Everything about Careers in Science is about like failure. And it's like the first time you really, really pick up on that. Like, yeah, the first episode, because I never watched the pilot. I really need to. But like Careers in Science is where it's like, oh, okay, this is what the whole show is. The previous generation is like so at least
great
in terms of the mythology. They're great, and they did amazing things, and they have their whole life ahead of them, or they had their whole life ahead of them, and they had all of these opportunities, and they did all this amazing science and shit, and we're just what's left in the aftermath, right?
What we're saying is that Venture Brothers is indistinguishable in terms of messaging and tone from Nier Automata.
That
kind of.
Don't start. Yes, Saturn. You know what? You give me 15 minutes, and I will be able to make that argument.
Saturn. Now I'm imagining a scene in Nier Automata where 2B and Nina stumble upon Helper.
Helper doing the become as gods thing, but it's still just like it's just beeping. Yeah.
9S, you have to kill it right now.
9S is like, but he didn't do anything wrong. Helper is our friend.
They take an expedition to the moon to look for the last humans and just find the problem.
See,
the problem, like the problem.
We'll
get to that.
Brock just drives 9S increasingly insane because he fucks 2B instead. Normal things.
Yeah, we get to have a weird NTR awakening scene of 9S. I think this is honestly perfectly in keeping with the tone of the show.
Yeah, and with Nier Automata.
Sorry, Twink Boy, I didn't know you two were a thing.
You were a thing.
Do we want to talk about individual episodes in here, or are we just kind of keeping it gesturally?
I think we'll be here for several hundred hours.
If we try to go through every episode, we're gonna just go insane.
It's funner to do the greatest hits anyway, I think, because at no point do we ever hit a low.
No.
I think if we just want to keep it focused on season 1, there's a couple highlights that I want to talk about with season 1 in general, because I took a lot of notes.
Oh, good. I'm glad you did.
I will say, like, for my, and I guess we'll get to these because I'm interested in seeing what notes you took. My big ones aside from Careers in Science, which is like, as Sarah said, the quintessential early Venture Brothers episode. And like, if you were going to make a list of 5 Venture Brothers episodes that like are just the show, this is the show, the Venture Brothers, these 5 episodes. Careers in Science is absolutely on there.
Absolutely.
Another one in season 1 that's really good that I really enjoy is called Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Magic, which is where the necromancer Byron Orpheus moves into the compound because Rusty needs some renters.
Yeah.
And you get, because the introduction to Orpheus is also so extremely over the top. And this is also where we get the bit of like, what's it made of?
What's it made of?
Oh, nothing. Come on, you can tell me.
Unconventional parts.
An orphan. A what?
The line that caps that entire bit, that just makes it, that goes from good to great, is, I didn't use the whole thing. What do you mean by that, Rusty?
What does that mean, Rusty?
It's great because it answers no questions, but the images it calls to mind are so vivid that you have no further questions.
Correct.
It's a great line. It is like, the show has a couple of these, but they are like Golden Age Simpsons level gags.
Yes.
Where it's just like, it happens so quick and it leaves you stunned and you're laughing, but you're also like, no, leave it there. Perfect.
Don't expand on it anymore. Yeah, like Orpheus is a character that Jackson Public and Doc Hammer have said before. They eventually kind of didn't know what to do with him. Because they had so many other kind of things going on. Orpheus he's such his own thing. They didn't really know what to do with him. Which is a shame, because Orpheus and Shore Leave are characters who are just like that. It's like, I don't really know where you fit in all of this, but I love you.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Orpheus could not carry an episode by himself.
No, absolutely not. But like,
he's not flexible enough like the others are.
He's too unfortunately reactive and doesn't have people to bounce off of long enough to keep an episode going.
Yeah.
The other thing with Orpheus too, and I've talked about this with Oates, I believe, specifically, but part of the thing with Orpheus is that you can tell, like, part of the core of Orpheus' character, like, he's a weirdo, but he's like just a genuinely nice guy. Like, he's a square, and he's maybe not like a perfect dad or whatever, but like he's like one of the only characters in the show who has like an unambiguously good heart. And I think you can tell that Hammer and Public just like, I don't know how to make fun of this guy in a way that doesn't feel bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Because like Orpheus is like a good guy, and he wasn't like, he's divorced. He's your standard like divorced cartoon dad.
He is an ex-wife guy, and we stan.
And I appreciate that about the Venture Brothers, is that it is very cynical, but it never feels mean.
Yeah.
At first blush, it feels like it's a deconstructive parody, but it has too much hope and love in it to make it feel... It makes it feel reconstructive on accident.
Mm-hmm. It's the perfect kind of parody show where it can only exist on this level if Doc Hammer and Jackson Public absolutely love everything they're making fun of. Like, adore it. Whatever they're making fun of, they were raised on.
Right. They're like broadly not willing to be like, they actually cite like season 1 especially, but also a little bit of season 2 and 3 is like they were younger when they were making them, so their humor was a little more bleak and they were a little more cruel. But like they're, to a certain extent, they're not. I cannot really recall off the top of my head any instances in which they go, "Oh, we're going to be cruel to this person who doesn't deserve it somehow."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like out of proportion with what they did to deserve it or anything like that, because they have the understanding that good comedy punches up, like it's funnier when someone who is less touchable is humiliated.
Sure, because the butt of the joke character of the entire show is Rusty, who is an adult man who should know better, but like Rusty sucks. And Rusty sucks for a lot of reasons, but Rusty sucks, and he's a grown man who should know better. And so Rusty gets to be the butt of the joke. And the deal is that no matter what happens to Rusty Venture, you think like, oh yeah, he deserves that.
Yeah.
Even like the onus of like the season 1 finale, which is he is pregnant with a tumor of his stillborn twin who's come to get revenge on him. He still deserves that.
That episode's also really good, though I did want to mention it mostly. Not because it's like an episode that I think is necessarily like remarkable in terms of tone or humor to the rest of the season, but because this is the first episode where you get to see Hank just completely serving that T-Girl swag.
Yeah!
Hank! This is more of a late season Venture. So this is a season 2 thing, or an episode 2 of the Venture Brothers discussion hour. But like, it's the first time you really get the sense that Hank Venture might be the best character on the show, is when he's just owning his Rocky Horror Picture outfit, right? Like, he just looks so good, and you're just like, oh, he's just super comfortable in that. It's like, okay.
Yeah. I love the whole Rocky Horror bit in general, because it is the very first in like the entire series. Eventually, just kind of, it's always a background joke that never really gets any attention to it, but very frequently, despite Rusty and Brock always arguing together, they're never going to beat the allegations because they're dressed as Rocky and and Dr. Frankenfurter.
Yeah, absolutely. I almost said Finkelstein, which is the doctor from Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah, and we get Brock with that great wig and just wearing nothing but the Speedo, carrying the pregnant-looking Dr. Venture into the hospital.
It's just like, you cannot.
So funny. Like, they are like, and that's the other thing, is that as much as, which is part of, I think, the charm of the Venture Brothers, is that no matter how much like Doc sucks, like Rusty sucks. I hate Rusty's guts, but I also like Rusty a lot, right?
Yeah.
I have a lot to say about Rusty that we'll get into in later seasons and stuff.
One of the funniest things about Rusty is that he is he perfectly threads the needle of the worst character. And also, like, you kind of love him because he's just so pitiful.
Well, he's so dynamic. There's so much that goes into him as a person, and you get none of it in season 1. Because season 1, I think, is really, really great in hindsight of everything else, because it is establishing. It's the intro to Tales of the Abyss,
right?
When it's, hey, look at all these awful people.
Yeah.
We're going to spend the next 70 hours teaching you why they are the way they are, and you're going to feel really bad for them.
Oh, like Umineko.
That's correct.
Like, why are they all friends? Why is this family?
Why do these people suck so much, and I hate their guts? But eventually you come around to realizing, like, yeah, they all suck ass. And you hate all of their guts, but, like, they're also so, like, relatable and understandable.
It's that fucking bit from Seinfeld with the portrait of Kramer, and he's like, he disgusts me, and yet I can't look away.
I think a reason why this also works for Venture a lot is, like, yeah, he's always the shithead, right? He's always the aggressor, but he's also the son of a very famous and successful man. He personally has a lot of money, and even when he's broke, he owns a ridiculous amount of property and very expensive technology. And he really doesn't ever have to answer to anyone except for his own mistakes, which he makes constantly. And he's a sniveling little pissant, and every time he falls down, it's funny. And it's like, eventually, like, even when the show gets to its more, like, sentimental to its more sentimental half, I should say. Like, even when the show asks you to look at him sympathetically and feel bad about him for the things that he's had to deal with, or otherwise, like, look at him with some amount of sympathy, it does this while still making him the butt of jokes that he inflicted on himself.
Yeah,
totally,
everything,
absolutely.
A lot of it is Rusty's own goddamn fault. Not all of it, but a lot of it is Rusty's own goddamn fault.
Absolutely.
He is a character who is, I think, ironically, considering that the Monarch is someone who fills this role more, he is very much the Wile E. Coyote kind of character, where he has the style guide where everything bad that ever happens to him is his fault, and he would have been better off if he had just done nothing.
Yes. Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think season 1 and a lot of season 2 especially, and the later seasons as well, but like laying this groundwork was so crucial to the success of the Venture Brothers as a whole. Mm-hmm. And they had no idea what they were doing at the time. They were writing a season of Johnny Quest parodies. Wouldn't it be funny if the Fantastic Four were all monsters?
And I think, I will say before we get off season 1, because I think we should probably move on to the other ones at some point, I think that is ultimately also the thing that enamors me such to season 1 above the other ones, is I like how many, like, there are so many just they're on an adventure doing a thing. Sure. And like you do get some of that in like season 2 and some in season 3, but it's a resource that steadily declines over the show's runtime, and like by the time you get to season 6 and season 7, there are incidents that are happening in New York City.
Sure.
But like there's not a whole lot of globetrotting.
Yeah.
Right.
And I like the Johnny, I do, even if it's like, oh, they could have just done Johnny Quest and it became its own thing eventually, I do really like the Johnny Quest angle.
Yeah, right. I do. The thing is, to talk about it real quickly, because it'll come up more later, but I do think what I like the most about the Venture Brothers is because I hate in storytelling, I think I hate the status quo more than I hate anything else in any piece of media ever. If a story tells me something cool and then by the end of it returns to the status quo, like that is like the thing I probably hate the most, right? It's why I don't really fuck with a lot of serialized media, because so much of it is devoted to the idea of going back to the status quo. And I think what is compelling about the Venture Brothers, even if like you lose some stuff along the way, you lose the globe trotting and you lose the Johnny Quest kind of trappings of it, is that even if you're kind of losing these concepts, it's in exchange for sacrificing the status quo, right?
You lose them because their time was over.
Exactly.
The Johnny Quest bit is just one of the many things that you get to the end of the season and they go, we're resolving these 2 things and we're adding 2 new question marks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like, I miss the Johnny Quest bit quite a lot.
Totally.
But also, it's like, whenever they move away from that, they have done it because the show has become a different kind of show this season.
Yeah. And I just, like, I think that is what compels me the most about the Venture Brothers, above, like, anything else about it. There's a lot of really good stuff about the show, but what really sticks in my head every time I think about the show, because I've been thinking about it a lot ever since we finished it, because it is a show that makes you into an insane person, as it turns out.
I win again!
You win again! But it's a show that makes you into a crazy person. And like, so I've been thinking about it a lot ever since we finished it. And it's just like, the thing that I like the most about it is that Public and Hammer are not interested at all in maintaining the status quo. This season 1 ends in partly because they had no idea if they were going to get a second season or if this is just going to be a one-off joint. But season 1 ends in the boys getting killed, right?
There's actually a funny thing there as we kind of work our way up to season 2. Between season 1 and season 2, there's a Christmas special that we also didn't watch.
Yeah, I gotta watch that.
Now, for spoilers, for a thing that Sarah's about to get to, but is like also like the crux of season 1 and season 2. So the boys die at the end of season 1. Right. The beginning of season 2 is the reveal that like they have clones of them. They've already been cloned several dozen times at this point in the story already. They're just very prone to death, and Dr. Venture is a mad scientist. That's how it goes.
Correct.
Funnily enough, though, the Christmas special that happens between season 1 and season 2 just has Hank and Dean in it, and does not bother to explain that.
Yeah!
It hinges on the joke of them returning to the status quo like nothing happened, and it's so fucking funny.
That's great.
It's so good. But anyway, I just want to make sure I got that in before we transitioned completely.
Now, before we move on to season 2, I'd like to actually say the notes that I took.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, tell us some notes, Ben. We love your notes.
One of the things that I love about season 1 is that, and I thinking about it, rewatching it, is that season 1 feels the most like an actual sequel to the Rusty Venture cartoon, because it's so much more grounded in being what if Johnny Quest grew up,
right?
Than I think any other season. And also the stylization of season 1 is exclusive to season 1, but like the limited animation of season 1 that you don't see in any other season afterwards.
Yeah, because it's deliberately trying, because it's not just like cheap flash animation, it's also stilted and wonky, and the angles are moved in such to deliberately evoke Hanna-Barbera. Like, you'll notice all of the characters have really high necklines so that they can have the head twirl and then talk and then twirl again.
Mm-hmm. Like, I'm honestly surprised we did not at any point see Synchrovox in the first season.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there should have been a Synchrovox bit. It's right there.
Oh, you know, the only time they were ever going to do it is in like if they had the budget for like 3 more episodes, it would be like Rusty has like a horrible like diet pills, quote unquote, nightmare. And it's him talking to Rusty or talking to Jonas, and Jonas is like a like Ren and Stimpy style, like painterly ass face with like with Hammer's mouth talking.
Yeah,
right.
I also like that there's a lot of things in season 1, like little character quirks that just vanished because they became characters instead of archetypes. See, like especially a lot of the voices, like Dr. Girlfriend's voice got a lot more smoothed out in season 2. To the point where I don't even notice it at all anymore.
Oh, after a certain point, you just accept it. You're just like, that's just what she sounds like.
Yeah,
I think going back to season 1, like the only reason that you even notice it in season 1 is comparative to how it shows up later. Like, she's significantly more nasally, which I think honestly might have just been because again they mentioned like they were making that, like they've been making the show for 20 years,
right?
And they were younger when they started making the show, and I think they eventually got the voices got closer to where they needed to be, shall we say?
Yeah. And go ahead.
But there's other smaller things like Billy's head doesn't slosh after season 1. What was the other one? Just like a lot of characters, like their voices completely changed. Like you see St. Cloud in season 1.
Do you?
And he has a completely different voice.
Where do you see St. Cloud?
He gets a single line of dialogue, but he's at the garage sale trying to buy stuff off of Rusty.
He's the one that says he's his stack of magazine. He says with Buffy's own Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Oh, that's right.
But there's like so many little like some of those little quirks that just kind of went away because they stopped because the character got too fleshed out for them.
Right.
That you don't need to make this joke about them anymore.
Yeah,
or in the case of Augusta St. Cloud, they're just like, okay, I have to voice this guy for more than one line. Let me actually figure out what he sounds like.
Let me increase it. Let me get a character out for him.
Quiz boy.
Everybody can do an Augustus St. Cloud impression.
Oh yeah, of course.
What's that, quiz boy? You have a free-to-play account? I can't hear you over the sound of my 5NP Saber Astolfo.
Everybody can do a 24.
You're so right, though. St. Cloud would be a gotcha whale, wouldn't he?
Oh, of course he would.
Oh my god.
Oh yes.
He would just fucking wail the day the servant came out, and then he just get it and like.
And then, but like, never actually do any of the work.
Dude,
Augustus St. Cloud has no idea what's going on in the plot of FGO, right?
I bought Kinoko Nasu. No, not Type Moon. Kinoko Nasu. I bought him.
He writes my speeches now.
When it comes my time, his soul will go to hell in place of mine.
St. Cloud, you jackass! At least put comma in your friend list.
You would like that, wouldn't you? No, you can have my maxed out Georgios instead.
No! He switched out with Agramanu!
These are jokes for like
running
5 people, you guys. These are jokes for no one but us and like Magus and Shia.
That's okay. They're
definitely listening right now. Yeah, what's up, guys?
No, what else do I have? There is this like very strong appeal to season 1, and it does have some of my favorite line reads in the entire series. In the Incredible Mr. Brisby, Doc's "Holy Damn It, Christmas."
That was also really good.
And the one that like stuck with me for years is in Ice Station Impossible, when Dr. Impossible is like, "Try to find a man of living rubber," and Brock just looks at him and goes, "Stop wiggling around, you jackass."
I do think so. One of the funniest things about Venture Brothers is that it has the problem that Steven Universe had like 10 years later, which is that when the first season came out, they could afford Colbert, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the same way that when the first season of Steven Universe came out, they could afford Nicki Minaj, right?
Yeah. And then they realized, oh shit, Dr. Impossible has to be a character.
Now he has to be a character, and we have to actually. And oh shit, Stephen Colbert is like a real guy now.
You know, the only difference is, and this is unfortunately to the Venture Bros, they lose in this exchange. Steven Universe, the show, is funny enough to make at one point a joke that fusion doesn't show up anymore because she's too expensive.
Yeah.
You know what cracks me up? I'm just realizing, you know what also did that? Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because they had John Cena.
That's right!
Oh, that's right!
Yeah!
Shit!
That's also
fucking first season with him for like 30 of the 80 episodes.
Man.
That's also why when Transformers Prime was coming out, the premiere, like 45-minute special, they heavily advertised Cliff Jumper, voiced by one Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, that's a laugh.
So, Saturn, here's the thing. You don't know, bless your heart, you don't know Transformers, but the joke with Cliff Jumper is that Cliff Jumper always dies really early in the series.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Sarah, I have an even funnier wrinkle to that joke. It's
Please.
Because of Transformers Prime.
Yeah, that's even better. Yeah, no. So they spent like all of their time advertising that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was going to be Cliff Jumper. Cliff Jumper dies in the first episode of Transformers Prime.
Yeah, that's right. my thinking is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, he's going to have an acting career until he can't be a leading man anymore, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
John Cena, he does things, but he does a lot more cartoons and stuff, I think, than he does actual live action. Whenever he gets to a point where he wants to stop being a wrestler, he should really consider just retiring into being a cartoon voice actor.
Oh, absolutely.
That's kind of what Jeffrey Combs did. He doesn't do a whole lot of live action anymore. He just does cartoons.
Because because as we have learned with our discussions with the inimitable why am I blanking on his name always, Mr. Krabs?
Oh,
Clancy Brown.
That's right.
I always want to call him a different actor's name for some reason. Who's the guy from The Thing?
That's
Jeffrey Combs. No,
that's
I'm
not
sorry.
Jeffrey Combs. You're thinking of Reanimator.
No. I'm thinking of a guy with who's the guy from Escape from New York?
Oh my god, why am I blanking on
Oh my
his
god,
name
why am I blanking?
Kurt
I had too
Russell?
much to drink.
Kurt Russell!
Thank you.
I always mentally mash those two together in my brain.
Clancy Brown
So I
and
always
Kurt
want to call
Russell,
him
yeah.
Kurt Russell.
That makes
But
sense.
anyway, the inimitable, but much as we've discovered with the inimitable Clancy Brown, turns out when you get to be of a certain age and you don't want to do the Hollywood acting anymore, or the roles aren't as present, you can just retire by voicing a cartoon crab and be set for the rest of your life.
Yeah, you can just be Mr. Krabs and have a check coming for the rest of your life.
I think one of the funny things, and this is actually relevant because he's in the Venture Brothers, it's so funny to think of, holy shit, they got Clancy Brown to be in their cartoon to play this character from anything, and he's been Mr. Krabs for 30 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
he does voice acting. That's his thing now.
Thinking about it, it is very funny that they got Clancy Brown to voice a cartoon character in Venture Brothers, and it's another guy who's red.
Yeah. Another thing
And he's an old guy.
Even before, I guess I gotta point out, like, even before Mr. Krabs, he was already voice actor. Starting in, like, the mid-90s, he was in Superman as Lex Luthor.
Oh, yeah, that's true, yeah.
Wait, was he Lex Luthor?
He's always
been
been Lex Luthor.
What?
Like DCAU.
Yeah.
Oh God, you're right. I'm thinking about it now.
Well,
That is Clancy
Sarah.
Brown, isn't it?
Well, Sarah, you think about Red Death's big speech.
It's just a Lex Luthor.
And just you think about Lex Luthor talking to the Question, being like, President, do you know how much power I'd give up to be president?
Oh God, you're right.
Yeah.
Man, Clancy Brown is the fucking GOAT.
Wait, that means they got
next
Batman, the
episode.
Joker, and Lex Luthor in their show.
Yes,
They did.
Wait,
Man, yeah,
and-
no, they got them all.
And Red Death is also a bald guy.
He's also
So
Yeah.
they just took Mr. Krabs and Lex Luthor and put them in a
Yes, they
blender.
did, Saturn. I'm glad he finally got the joke.
What a stupid show. I love them.
Stupid, awesome show.
Someone needs to pay
Fuck.
them to make more of that show, even if it's canceled.
I don't care. Bring it back.
The thing is,
I have-
we leave at a point, and we'll talk about this later. We leave at a point where you could just reboot the series and just start again with a new season 1, just like with the understanding that the Venture Brothers happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have one more note about season 1 before we can move on.
Sure.
Going back to the gimmicks that kind of faded away. One that I wish would have stuck around though is the Action Man farting all the time. That was hilarious.
They actually still kept that. They just toned it down a little bit because I remember catching him doing it in season 6.
It's so funny.
It's such a perfect old guy thing.
Yeah.
It is. That's the thing.
I love the later season where they're chasing Scaramangelo up the stairs and he's like, I got plastic knees.
He's making a little toot like every other step too.
Yeah, it's so good. But yeah, that's all I really have for season 1. It's such a perfect it could have been just one season and it would have been a fun, like really memorable parody of Johnny Quest.
Sure, but then we kept going. We go
Yeah,
into season
and-
2, and that is when like season 2. I think season 3 and 4 are the best seasons of the show.
Who wants
But
to make the
season 2
argument
is
for
when they're
season
really.
2?
I made the argument for season 2.
Oh, let's make the argument for season 2. Hit
So
me.
like, it immediately sets the groundwork for like, okay, we're never going to go back to the original status quo. Every time we start a new season, things
Absolutely.
are different because like even though Hank and Dean are together, like back again, and in the first episode they don't even give much of an explanation for it. They just kind of like talk about how like Hank and Brock and Rusty are like arguing over like how they're just going to like what they're going to do about it and
Sure.
globetrotting or whatever. And then it ends with like, oh, Hank and Dean are back, it's fine. But the Monarch's still in jail.
Yeah.
And he's also like broke up with his girlfriend and he's not arching Venture. So
I will
like
s-
things are different every time.
I will say at least they do explain what it is in the first episode. They do that.
They
Sure.
do,
Yeah.
but I mean, like, Hank and Dean are already, like, basically there because of the Christmas special, but also, like, halfway through the episode, like, they're already more or less back, and it's Hank and Rusty and Orpheus just kind of arguing over, like, the morality of it,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's the fun part of it is that season 2 is when the show kind of looks you in the face and says like, hey, we are not interested at all in maintaining like to just keep doing the same joke over and over
This
again,
isn't
right?
Aqua Teen Hunger Force. This isn't,
Right.
Yeah.
like, Space Ghost Coast to Coast. This isn't Harvey... This
Harvey
isn't all of the
Birdman.
other Adult Swim shows. We want to do something... Not necessarily serial, but we want to do something
Different.
Venture Brothers.
Yeah, we want to
Yeah.
do the Venture Brothers. We want it to be our own thing, and we don't want to maintain like the same story kind of concepts between every season.
And a great way they showcase that is when season 2 starts, just like they do for season 3 and season 4, and I wish they did it for the rest of them, but they reanimate and redo the entire opening.
That's
so
right.
that it is Rusty and JJ.
Yeah, I do miss that they keep like they do it for season 3, but then after that they kind of, and I get it, they only have 22 minutes of episode to
Yeah.
tell a story every week, So after a certain point, the show essentially drops the opening.
Yeah.
Because they need every minute they can get for their jokes, right?
It's why when the movie does the opening, I got chills because it literally had been... Sarah, it had literally been 15 years since I had seen a new opening.
Yeah. It had been so long since a new opening, right? Like, that's why when the movie finally does a new opening, it's like, oh shit, okay. And it's like a remix of, like, the opening theme, which is very cool. But, like...
God, I love that theme, too.
I love it.
It's so good.
I love the music in this show. It's so good. Like, the music in Venture Brothers is really, really good. It's just as, like, an understanding of what it's trying to do, right?
My favorite one is the one that they play whenever Brock goes on a psychotic killing spree, and it just plays a harpsichord and psycho violin strings in, like, this goofy fucking, like, music.
I am always such a big fan of whenever they play the zoo, 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 zoo.
Yeah, absolutely. They don't play it enough anymore, like, toward the end, either.
Yeah.
Like, they don't do, like, that's like their Adventures in Super Science song.
Yeah, their montage.
The rare time it comes back, I'm always just like, oh, hey.
It's just one of those things that, like, because, like they lose the Johnny Quest bit, they eventually lose the other trappings of that as the show, like, later in its life pivots to being... Like, it's still a comedy, but it becomes more of, like, a drama as time goes on, in that it has, like, an overarching plot that it is concerned with at the expense of other things, which is not, like, necessarily a negative, but, like, as they kind of lose that episodic nature, they also, like, stop doing things like the super science music as often, which is sad. But,
the transition of that is interesting, because it kind of feels like, as the transition from What If Johnny Quest Grew Up parody type thing, as the seasons transition, it goes from these old retired guys who once were in the prime of their lives and, like, had grand adventures in their past, but are now retired and washed up. They kind of just go back into being active members of their group, you know, of their organizations, like the Guild and the OSI and the Super Science group. Like, they just kind of like go, like, Rusty kind of just accepts going back into the world of super science.
Yeah, it's not that he is it's like Steve Bentley put it really well when he explains and kind of gives it, like, the idea of him as an ex-boy adventurer is he's an ex-child star. Like, that's the idea they're kind of going for. So, like, you know, sometimes those child stars make a revival. And so, like, starting, I think, like, around season 3 or 4, they kind of have that happening with Rusty. But, like, he's still a washout, which makes it even funnier.
You know what Rusty is? He's Macaulay Culkin.
I was literally going to say, if they do a live-action Venture Brothers, they need to cast Macaulay Culkin.
What is season 6 and 7, but the equivalent of Macaulay Culkin being on Best of the Worst and having a grand, like time of his life on Best of the Worst,
absolutely.
with a bunch of other old
old fucking assholes. Yeah, like, yeah, no, like, for one, if you're gonna listen to these 2 episodes, please go listen to the Steak Bentley episode about Venture Brothers. It is at this point required watching for anybody consuming Venture Brothers content. I watched the fucking Nerdist timeline of the Venture Brothers, and even they were like,
it's a good watch.
Go watch the Steak Bentley video.
Frankly, though, like, anytime we talk about a topic and Steak Bentley has covered it, that's a required watch. Like, flat out.
Bentley's talked about Metal Gear Solid 4,
yeah,
Cowboy Bebop, Ping Pong the animation, One Punch Man, and now he's talked about Venture Brothers. Just go watch all of those. They're really good.
Steak Bentley, much like H Bomber Guy, topical, makes videos very rarely, but because he cares very much about what he's putting into them.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Just like the Venture Brothers. Bringing it right back around.
Yeah.
Because the Venture Brothers is going to come back someday, right, you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think season 2. Season 2, I think, is it feels like the most flexible, and I think that's because it has the you guys who stay dinner and Vivas Los Muertos, the Ben Edlund episodes, as they were, which it's such a a testament to Doc Hammer and Jackson Pollock's writing when you can tell they didn't write those episodes.
Right.
Like you watch Viva Los Muertos compared to every other episode of the Venture Brothers, and you can tell they didn't write it, which is not a bad thing. It's just like a testament to how unique their writing is.
Sure, absolutely. Like, you can totally tell when Ben... And it's very funny that Ben Edlund has this kind of interest in Gargantua 1, because he wrote Careers in Science, and he wrote Guess Who's Coming to State Dinner, which both, of course, involve Gargantua. And I think that's really interesting, that he is only tied to those kind of plot lines. And then everything else, and like those 2 episodes are really different from the rest of the Venture Brothers, even though I think Careers in Science is like one of the quintessential Venture Brothers episodes. And you can kind of tell that the tone is different in Careers in Science and Guess Who's Coming to State Dinner.
It's a bit grittier.
Sure, absolutely.
Like, especially in Viva Los Muertos, for sure.
Yeah.
I think like those 3 episodes, like the 2 that he co-wrote with Public and then the one that he wrote by himself, they're all to me like in the same way that you would say like one of those is the quintessential early Venture Brothers. They're also the ones like, this is your presage for what the show is going to be like later.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the later episodes borrow a lot more in terms of like tone and pace from the Ben Edlund episodes than they do from like anything in like season 1 or season 2.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead, Alex.
I was going to say, I think in the opposite direction. Another reason why I love season 2 a lot is they kind of directly address the idea of like the status quo will always change, but whether you see them or not, the adventure always continues with these idiots, because this is also where we get one of my favorite episodes, which is Escape to the House of the Mummies Part 2.
I was literally about to bring up Escape to the House of Mummies Part 2, which is one of my favorite episodes in the entire show.
So fucking good. So much good shit happens in that one, and it's like, and like the A, B, and C plot are like completely unrelated and never get resolved. It's like the perfect game.
It's so, that one is like one of the quintessential, like, season 2 is a lot more outlandish than season 1 was. They're expanding out in multiple different directions. They haven't focused yet.
Despite it being season 2, this is the experimental phase where they are throwing everything at the wall, not to see what sticks, but just to get those ideas out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a great concept episode, the way we sometimes talk about like the original version of Metal Gear Solid 2 called Metal Gear Solid 3, or other versions of that we've attributed to other directors, where it's Escape the House of the Mummies Part 2. It's a sequel to Part 1, which is not a real episode. They tease a Part 3, which is also not a real episode, and also it's a bottle episode, because nothing that ever happens in it ever really comes up again in the rest of the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it does, because do you remember one of the big plot points of the A-plot between the episode Part 1 opener and the Part 3 like cliffhanger? Mm-hmm. They talk about Grover Cleveland's time machine.
They're so funny.
That one also has one of my favorite Brock lines ever, which is
is it "This is getting stupid," or is it the his head is like a pumpkin?
Yeah, it's Edgar Allan Poe in a headlock. That thing is like a pumpkin because hearing Patrick Warburton say the word pumpkin.
Yeah,
almost as good as hearing him say Piscetti.
Piscetti.
There's so many good episodes in the season, though. We also get 20 Years to Midnight.
Ignore!
Oh, 20 Years to Midnight is an all-time fucking classic.
See, 20 Years to Midnight is so fucking good, because, like, I know that Jackson Public apparently, again, this is going off the Steak Bentley video. Please go watch the Steak Bentley video. But going off of that video is that apparently Jackson Public does not like the ignore me gag. Like, he doesn't like that parroted back at him.
Yeah, that's why he doesn't like it.
Sure.
He got harassed by con-goers about it.
Yeah.
But it's so funny. I understand.
So funny. Yeah, but I totally understand why he would
The
but
thing
it's
is,
so funny.
The thing is, if you're going to do it at a con, especially if you're going to do it to him, you have to be in a 9-foot-tall space alien costume.
Exactly.
You can't
it has
just stay
to be
into
impossible to ignore you.
Yeah.
Because all the better is that this 9-foot-tall robot alien that looks like a Doctor Who creation shouting "ignore me" like it's coming through a megaphone directly into your ears while inside of a crowded plane.
This one also has two of my favorite like lines, because again, these guys are so good at saying things.
Yeah.
Of course, aside from "ignore me," it's "someone left a baby."
Yeah.
And the other is one of my favorite quirks about these. Like, every so often you'll get a character, like, here's their archetype, here's kind of what they are, but then they'll just drop like a thing that they do. This episode introduces Colonel Gentleman's weird lists.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Because he has that list where he's writing his journal of toys Colonel Gentleman wishes he had when he was a lad, but they weren't invented yet. And he says, the way he says it sticks with me, and I hear it every time I see it, which is Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo.
Well, that always reminds me of the old, I forget if she goes by a different name now, Eddie Izzard. I can't remember if she actually went and changed her name. But she had this old bit where, because she does a really good Sean Connery impression. Mm-hmm. And she had this bit where she's like, where she's talking about like how to actually like get yourself like, you know, warm it up. And she just kept going, snowplow. Snowplow. Yeah. It's just a word that instantly turns on the voice.
Yeah. Snowplow.
That's snowplow. Oh, that probably is why they did a Sean Connery voice for the Courage the Cowardly Dog episode with the snowman. The snowman.
Yeah.
That's literally why. Yeah.
Yeah.
Similarly, I know a person who is when I was in theater, I had a college professor who told me, like, so Eva Gabor and what's his name? Peter Lorre are both Hungarian, and they have the same accent because they're from the same town.
Sure.
So they get into character for either of them by just saying "darling" until it sounds right.
It's so good.
Darling,
darling.
Darling, no.
This episode is so fucking good, though. Oh, yeah. the other bit in this episode, I'm just remembering it now. It's when Rusty bursts into Spider Skull Island, and the woman sits up from the couch, and and JJ sits up from the couch. And his positioning is very
King. Absolute. Listen, Jonas is also a Avenger in every like meaning of the word, because he also sucks the way that, like, so JJ, excuse me, I should say JJ, not Jonas, because Jonas is a completely different character who we'll talk about next episode, because there's a lot to talk about there. But like JJ is like, he's basically everything. It's very funny that like everything that Rusty could have been was kind of like very literally excised from his body, right? Like they took everything that could have been good about Rusty and literally cut it out of him and made it into a totally different character, and that's JJ.
Yeah.
But the funniest thing about JJ, and this doesn't come up until like season 3 and 4, but JJ also sucks.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's still a total bastard.
He takes after their father in different ways, and unfortunately you cannot take anything good out of Jonas.
Unfortunately, Jonas Venture cannot produce anything good is the most important part.
The most evil and sad answer about both of his poor children.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting when you get this contrast of Rusty, who lived the actual life of Rusty Venture Boy Adventurer.
Sure.
Who was raised by Jonas and the original Team Venture, and you get Jonas, who his only experience is the videos, right? The show and the interviews and whatnot that Jonas made, like the public image of Jonas, and he's still a huge asshole,
and he's still a huge piece of shit, right? Like he's trying to, I think Jonas or JJ is an extremely interesting character because he's trying to be a regular person in the Venture Brothers. Mm-hmm. So he's shitty in the way that a regular person is, right? Yeah. Like, he's kind of self-absorbed, and he kind of glorifies his father in a way that is not consistent with reality.
He's the type of person to ask his big brother how he's doing, and then very clearly cuts him off because he doesn't actually care.
Because he doesn't actually care, Like, Jonas or JJ is too busy trying to be like a normal guy in a show that is not interested in a normal guy.
And he's interested in trying to be a normal guy despite the fact that he was basically birthed from his brother's womb.
Correct.
At the ripe old age of
at least 50?
Something like that.
Yeah.
40s, 50 something. Yeah.
There's an episode in season 3 that I really want to get into with JJ, because I think it's like the perfect quintessential thing of why JJ does not actually fit into this world.
Sure.
But season 2, like the bits we get of him in season 2, like where he is like, hey, he's successful. He's like he steals Rusty's girl, quote, girl.
And like he's successful and he's competent. Like, he's actually, like, in a lot of ways, he is the successful successor to the Jonas Venture Science legacy. It's just that he's also successful successor to the part where he's a giant piece of shit.
That's correct.
But the big problem, I think, out of all of that is like, if you read between the lines, he's still a nicer person, and he still has more morals than his brother, despite being a total piece of shit.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's partly because... That's why I think Jonas was really interesting, and why I think what happens to Jonas in the later seasons, or JJ, excuse me, in the later seasons is what makes it so tragic, is that, like, yeah, JJ kind of sucks, and, like, he is, like, he's still kind of an asshole, and he's kind of glorifying his dad, but you understand why he is, because he doesn't really know Jonas the way that Rusty knows Jonas. And so I'm willing to make the argument that JJ is the only character in Venture Brothers who doesn't deserve what he gets. And that is the tragedy. And like, but that is not presented as a cruel thing, right? Like, what happens to JJ, which is, that's a season 2, that's an episode 2 of this whole Venture Brothers discussion thing. What happens to JJ isn't fair, but that's the point.
Right.
And I think an important part about that is also, like, fair or not, it doesn't matter. He's content and he's happy, and, well, maybe not necessarily, but, like, near the end of that particular arc that he has, he comes to realize that, like, he's a nicer person in the long run compared to Rusty. But in some regards, he's more of a side grade to Rusty than an upgrade. Because Rusty has other good things going for him, like actual family, a thing that, like, JJ has, but we don't see enough of it. And it kind of implies that, like, as happy and as stable as he was, it wasn't...
Like, you get the sense that he never really respected the ship captain, and also, like, you get some implication that, like, whenever he was married to Sally, he, at a certain point, kind of began treating her in a way, if not similar, at least similarly upsettingly to how Richard did. And so, like, it's not... He inherited his father's narcissism.
And and the thing is he recognizes and regrets that.
Yeah, like, that's the thing. And of course, Jonas himself never does, right?
JJ, we'll talk about this later. Yeah, but JJ gets the chance to actually have a conclusion with Rusty.
Sure, yeah,
and despite everything, like, he still wants to act like they have a long and storied history with each other. They grew up with each other, you know, and he wants to. He wants to, at the end, he wants to just pretend. He asks Rusty if he can pretend for a little bit that they were brothers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and, like, all of this gets set up in season 1 and 2. And that's why, like, I get the argument for season 2 being one of the best ones, which is funny.
Yeah.
Like, we could all make arguments for every single season being the best one.
Here's my other argument for season 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
This is where we get to meet best character in the world, and, you know, our introduction to him allowed us to finally end his horrible reign, Dr. Henry Killinger.
That's
Yes!
right!
He is in this season!
Killinger shows up in 2!
Killinger! I am Dr. Henry Killinger, and this is my magic motor bag.
My magic motor bag.
Your powers do not work on me, silly Billy.
You must stop with the dilly-dallying and the stinking thinking.
He shows up. He shows up.
I am the proud papa.
This episode is so good because Killinger is such a fantastic character in that all he does is introduce growth.
Right.
Like
He is a beneficent Satan.
Yeah,
That's correct.
I love, and he's just, I don't know. They took one of history's greatest monsters, and they turned him into one of the most endearing characters in the show.
Sure. Which is funny, because it's like, you know, the Killinger is like, what if you just... Because, like... Oh, God, no. There's too much to go into there. But with, like, the idea of what if there was a version of Henry Kissinger who understood that he was actually a huge fucking monster and a nightmare, well, then you get Killinger, right?
Mm-hmm. And well, it's like that whole character is a joke, because the idea is you get Henry Kissinger in a black and red suit with a glowing eye skull mask and a magic murder bag. It's like, oh, this is the most evil man who ever lived. But no, he's just like he's Santa Claus for would-be villains.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. He's every would-be villain's therapist. Yeah, he's Mary Poppins.
He is Mary Poppins. He floats around on his umbrella.
He has a magic bag, and he invites growth in the people he takes care of.
Yeah.
And much like Mary Poppins, he kills people by doing psychic Jedi battles with them.
That's right.
He has two amazing. Again, their line readings are so good in this series, and I like every season. I have like 4 or 5 or 10 lines that are just like they just are stuck in my craw. This one has 2 from Killinger, which is when 24 or 21 talks about his weird feminine hips, and Killinger's like, "That is not fair. I didn't choose my figure," And then at the end of the episode, when he flies away, and he goes, "My umbrella is stuck. I require assistance."
I know they're going to come up later, like in the episode too, but I do love the idea that they never, what do you call it? They never put a lot of attention to it. But the eventual reveal that him and the investors means that Killinger is just an alias, which means he probably was Kissinger. Mm. But more importantly, he is almost certainly a Peleiotes, the god of the southeast wind in Roman history.
Yeah,
because all of the others are named after different gods of the wind. Yes,
which I think is great because you know. With the brainworms we all have, you know, like, oh, FGO brain. He's probably like an Avenger servant.
It is the most Fate Stay Night thing in the entire show, which is like, yeah, here's these guys. By the way, they're all just the Greek gods.
Yeah, they are. The gods do exist. We'll get to that. We'll get to that later.
Hanging out.
My favorite part is that there are the 4 demigods of intercardinal winds.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, which means they're Desperado from Revengeance.
Yeah.
This is also
more Metal Gear references and Venture
these shows take place in the same universe. I'm sorry.
That's right. We sadly never got to see the scene where Dr. Killinger literally just unsheathes a katana from his umbrella. And then Rules of Nature starts playing in the background.
Well, he didn't do that because we know it would be a lightsaber instead, unfortunately.
Yeah, he's got his lightsaber.
Well, you could do like the No More Heroes route and just have it be a katana that is a lightsaber.
It's a fluorescent bulb.
Yeah.
Inexplicably, the lightsaber just bends like a katana would.
I do have a lot of notes on this season as well.
Yay!
The first episode, this is going to be one of the bigger ones, so I want to get this one out of the way. The first episode with the reveal that the boys are clones.
Yes.
The thing that I always just go back to. For one thing, the montage is hilarious, and
That's
it's one of the darkest jokes in the entire series. But it's so
we had a gas leak, the silent killer.
The one with the robot going I with the stock sound effect is so good. The one where they talk about where the boys fall in the spike pit, and then Doc and Brock turn around and they both have giant mustaches.
Yeah.
And then one of the deaths where Rusty's like, "Oh, that wasn't as bad as the time I got those hair plugs." And he knocks the water over and it short circuits the learning beds, and he's got these horrible hair plugs.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the line and this is like the first time you actually get a good look at what the real Thaddeus Venture is like underneath all of it, where he's talking to Orpheus and he's like, "No, they are Hank and Dean."
Right.
Like, he doesn't clone them on a whim or to keep up appearances. He clones them in the same way that a parent puts a Band-Aid on a skinned knee.
Right.
Right? It's just those skin knees are a lot bigger when you're a boy adventurer.
Sure. But
it's a great, preempting, because this is 2006. Mm-hmm. I wish that they were writing this, later whenever live service video games came around. You have stuff like Destiny, where it is where, you dying and then having to come back is written into the game as a thing that happens diegetically. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad they caught that one ahead of it. Just well, no, of course I have clones of them. I take them into fucking the far corners of the world and they get shot at by people living in this or that country, or get crushed by a statue, or electrocute themselves, or wear a Batman costume and jump off the top of the building.
Brock took them to the zoo and a Yeti ate them.
Or they're playing football and a satellite falls on Hank.
That's right.
And it's just I acknowledge that, if you're doing the actual Johnny Quest thing, it's not really likely that these stupid children of mine are going to survive all these encounters. So, yeah, I've got a plan. Don't worry about
these Golly Willikers kids. Yeah, and it's just... He's got that line of you have an accident-prone kid, you make him wear a helmet. You have death-prone kids, you keep a couple clones around. Mm. They're Hank and Dean. They are my kids.
He cares about them, and it sounds callous. When you in the moment, it sounds really callous. But as you go through the series, when they stop having clones later, you realize no, Rusty is like this because in his own way, he loves these kids, and he would do anything to take care of them, even if unfortunately, just because of the life he leads, they die.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wish... Well, I guess we can kind of talk about this very briefly here, and we'll talk about it more next week. I'm not really of the opinion that the Venture Brothers kind of earns its more heartfelt stuff.
I agree, broadly.
Yeah, broadly, I don't think it doesn't really sell me on its more heartfelt stuff. And I think part of it is that there's a lack of time, and that they didn't have enough episodes. Sure. I still think this show is really great. I think it's really good, of course. Mm-hmm. But later on, they introduced the idea that Rusty does feel some modicum of guilt for the dead versions of Hank and Dean when the Monarch is kind of in his head, and we see all these versions of Hank and Dean who have died and are mobbing the Monarch. You get this idea that he still has some kind of guilt for it. But I think if they really wanted to sell me on this idea, it needed at least one episode more devoted to that idea.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that is kind of why I think a lot of this more heartfelt idea, especially of Rusty Venture, who I do not view in a sympathetic light at all. Mm-hmm. Right? I don't have any kind of sympathetic kind of leanings towards Rusty. I think he's an extremely well-written character, but if they had killed Rusty in the movie, I would have been yeah, he deserves that.
It's one of those things, I think it's the weakness of the series is that it is the way of very jokey shows of this variety and jokey things of this variety that are based largely on kind of edgy gags to over the course of their runtime become more and more sentimental.
Sure.
And sometimes this is done very gracefully. But I think part of the issue that Venture Brothers struggles with, and like we get it a bit here, even with this episode of like Rusty having this thing that is later kind of revealed, like looked at in the sort of sentimental light, but he's very callous about it in the moment, right?
Sure.
And it's one of those things where the show, I think, is actually too committed to the gag of Rusty Venture, the complete shitheel, for any time it ever goes, see, look, Rusty actually cares, to land at all.
Yeah,
because we
absolutely.
never actually get any of Rusty being sincere, except for the rare couple of moments in the later seasons where they want you to go, hey, this is it, he does care. And like, I'm willing to believe that he does, because we are also dealing with, he is the son of Boy Adventure. He is Johnny Quest, and he grew up like Johnny Quest did, and part of his character is reckoning with this. What do you do when you're the washed-up child star who basically just got kind of raised in this psychopathic mother-based situation from day one? And like, how do you become... is it even possible to be a normal person after that? But it also doesn't... We don't really get any of him trying.
Right.
Which is the thing that I think kind of makes it sour for me.
So...
Go ahead, Oates.
I will point out. So I'm gonna jump over to season 3 and point out. And this is mostly just because like I have watched all of these seasons over and over enough times.
Sure.
He's incredibly callous and uncaring and mostly unfeeling about it, whatever is going on. However, all of the softer moments, like moment-to-moment random little bits that kind of sneak through, don't happen until the episode The Doctor is Sin, where Killinger arrives and informs him he could be a wonderful supervillain.
Sure.
And he asks Brock if he's a bad person.
Yeah.
All of the moments that showcase like Rusty kind of having more introspective moments happen as a result of that episode. So they're subtle and I feel like they really should give more moments like that, but they do notably don't do them until that episode.
Yeah. And I understand that totally. And I'm of the opinion that they needed more moments like Brock, am I a bad person? Like, I think that's the one thing that really holds the Venture Brothers back, even though I generally like the overall arch of the show. I think that if nothing changed and Rusty... I guess that it's kind of my own kind of personal hang-ups, let's say, of kind of Rusty being such a shitty person and generally not really grappling with it much at all versus kind of how that affects his kids. If I think the Venture Brothers has to pick a direction, and of course we're probably never getting any more Venture Brothers, right? Which sucks. But in a perfect world, and we got a season 8 and 9, the Venture Brothers has to pick a direction, right? Either Rusty realizes he's been a shitty dad and wants to do better, or Rusty just goes the pure Jonas route, right?
I think, and I kind of agree with you on that, but I think the idea is that he's not going to be Dad of the Year.
No.
But I think what separates him and Jonas the most is that Rusty cares enough to ground his kids.
Sure.
And I think that's one of the big... is that the only thing Jonas cared about for Rusty's entire life was, it's very important that my son idolizes me.
Right.
And everything stems from, I need this boy to always be looking up at me.
Right.
No matter what.
Revere me more than anything and always be reliant upon me.
Whereas, no, Rusty's not a great father. And we don't get a lot of moments of him showing like any like real genuine affection for his boys. We do get it, but it's very rare and it's usually marred by something else. but we know that he does care, and he does care in his own way, and he acts like a dad to them.
Yeah.
I guess... No, continue, sorry.
Like, he's got... Like, even in the first episode of season 2, where the clones are out of their pods and they're kind of bumbling around, and Doc looks at Hank, and he's like, "Don't you dare ever call your father a crumb bum in front of company." And it's like, oh yeah, these are his boys. They're his kid. They're his sons. He's not an outstanding dad by any measure, but he's still their dad, and he's, no matter what they are, he's going to care about them.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a couple of thoughts about this, which I realize we're kind of getting ahead of things, getting into this discussion, but that's like, okay, we're already here, fuck it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make 2 fiction references here, one of which I know people in this call will appreciate, and one of which is just for me. So, and also for Shia, I guess. So the first thing I'm going to say is, obviously, as I've discussed before, and with regards to Rusty being like not a great dad or really a great person, but also better than his dad, as we have established, he is an identical character completely to Emi Akiritsugu.
That's right.
Which is, and so like I just need to get that off my chest, because I think it's true. Like, you could just put young Rusty Venture in those prologue episodes with Emi as a young boy, like shooting his dad in the back of the head and all that shit. It would completely line up. You wouldn't have to change the thing. But the other thing, and this is why I think the Rusty thing doesn't land for me, which is part of my issue is, and I'm going to talk a little bit about a game called why am I stumbling words here? It's called Lobotomy Corporation.
Yeah.
And this is broadly about a guy who is, let's say, Gendo Ikari-esque, has put himself into a Planescape Torment situation, where he is basically continually wiping his memory and living through these incredibly difficult things in an effort to essentially achieve some sort of nirvana at the end of it, right? But the problem is, to do this, he has basically had to trap the living souls of everyone who ever respected or worked with him in an endless hell of his own making, and all they really get for their trouble is that eventually it will end whenever he figures it out and works his way out of it.
Yeah.
And I think part of why I don't buy the Rusty thing is that you get the sense that he feels that he does love his kids, and he does sometimes feel bad about what he does, but we never get him looking at this in a way of like, well, obviously I'm not always a great dad, and this hasn't been a great life for them, and they go on their own ways. How can I make this better? Right. How can I make up what has gone wrong? And that's why it never really lands for me, is because we get these occasional Saturn moments of like, oh, look, he cares and all that, but we never actually get him having to reckon with what he could actually do to close that gap. Because again, like, personal damage aside, like, I don't think familial love is worth anything without the actual, like, part where, like, the love turns into actions, right?
Sure, yeah.
Like, where the person is actually supportive and actually, like, looks out for you and changes what they're doing to support you. And because, like, yeah, we get the sense that Rusty feels bad about that kind of thing, but we also never see him do shit about it.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I think that, like, season 7 kind of attempts... So, like, there's 2 ways you can go about this. Is either Rusty feels bad about it, or his kids realize that their dad is turbo fucked, right?
Right.
And season 7 attempts to do that. We have that bit with Dean realizing, like, oh shit, my dad is also, like, insane the way I'm insane.
Yeah.
And I think the show needed one more episode devoted to that idea for it to sell. Because, like, part of being like, raised by an insane parent is that eventually you go, like, oh, they're insane like me, right?
Right.
But that kind of requires a little bit of introspection that the Venture Brothers kind of lacks toward the end. And I wish there was just one more episode that was about, like, oh, okay. Because, like, part of it is the boys. We're really getting into, like, later season stuff now, but whatever. I've had a couple drinks. It's fine. But this notion of like understanding your parents and why they're also insane, right? I don't think the Venture Brothers crosses that gap good enough. Does that make sense?
I think so, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
I don't think the Venture Brothers really sells the idea of Dean understanding why his dad is insane.
Well, yeah, because you get a lot of Dean being introspective. A lot of it is played for jokes,
right?
And then also it culminates in him basically becoming more like his dad by things that we'll talk about in the next episode, and then after that, immediately reverting to his old character,
right?
And I think it's interesting because, like, we'll talk about this more later on, but it's kind of a preview for what's coming up. Is that the status quo is always changing, but characters sometimes revert, and it does feel natural.
Sure, absolutely.
When it happens, and it's like, oh yeah, because all of these people are... The Venture Brothers was not about escaping that cycle.
Right.
It's not about escaping from the shadow. It was not about Rusty escaping from his father's shadow, right? There's hints of that happening, but that's not the crux of the story. Mm-hmm. The crux of the story is about your parents suck. They suck and they're human
too. Yeah, absolutely.
And what do you do with that? I don't know. You figure it out.
Yeah, and I think ultimately this comes down to the tragedy of the Venture Brothers as a show, not as a story, which is that at the very end of the show, they figured out, oh, we know what we want to do with the theming here. And then they got canceled.
And then they're out of time, yeah.
Yeah, and then and on their way to being canceled, they also got their episode count significantly reduced. So it's like we don't actually really have the time to do anything except the most bare bones version of what we want to do.
Right.
Like I totally agree that I would have loved more sentimental moments between Doc and the boys.
I mean, it's not even sentimental, which is what I'm looking for.
But the moments of reconciliation and stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think part of what makes it so appealing in the end is that we didn't get those, right? Is that
it denies you closure in a way.
All three of them know what the problem is, right?
Right.
But none of them want to make the step to fix it.
I don't think Hank knows what the problem is.
You're
sorry.
Hank is his own special character we'll talk about next episode.
Hank becomes well-adjusted in spite of everything going on around him.
That's correct.
I think for me, though, the only reason that, again, that still doesn't work for me is that, like, if you're doing a drama, you can't just go, here's the premise for the possible character friction. We're going to resolve none of it.
Right.
Because then it just feels like, because at that point, like, you've been spent, like, again, the show pivots so much to being drama later on that it's like, if you're not going to actually commit to doing the drama, why did you not just stay a jokes show?
Right. Yeah, I'm definitely of two minds about that too. I pivot really wild. I feel like I'm kind of the middle ground between how Saturn feels about it and how Oates and Ben feel about it, which is like, I pivot wildly between, like, I think those moments of drama are important, but also I feel like they weren't sold well enough to carry the whole show, right?
It's also worth me clarifying, I am much like a noted insane person, Joseph Anderson, which is to say, it's impossible for me to talk about anything that I love without mostly describing the shape of my hatred for it.
That's correct. No, that makes sense totally. Yeah,
like the fact that I have so many negative things to say about Venture Brothers should be, if anything, evidence that I think about it constantly.
That's exactly it.
Because if it was Darling and the Franks, I'd go, oh man, that show sucks ass. So watch that.
I will real quick, Saturn. I want to say that The Shape of Hate is the perfect title for a Venture Brothers episode.
The Shape of Hate is a perfect title.
That would be a hatred-centric episode overall.
It's about hatred trying to get buff and just ending up like back at his normal body shape with huge titties.
It's all hatred's backstory episode.
That's right. And
like how he became the man he is.
It's hatred goes to anger management class and starts doing lots of interpretive dance in the backgrounds of various scenes.
Does this mean we get to move on to season 3 and talk about Sergeant Hatred now?
Real quick.
Let me look over season 2, make sure there's nothing else I want to talk about.
Yeah, we skipped over one of the best things, this showdown at Cremation Creek.
That's right. So that's why I think season 2 is like extremely important, because like despite my many, many thoughts about the show, which is that this show makes me into a crazy person, now I understand why everybody thinks about the Venture Brothers constantly as soon as you watch it, is that season 2 is the season where we've gone from this is a dumb jokey joke parody of like Johnny Quest and the Hardy Boys and all that stuff into this is its own thing, and it has overarching stories that it is trying to tell. And that happens with Showdown at Cremation Creek, which is the whole season has been building toward this kind of conflict between the Monarch and the Ventures and the Guild, right? And now here we are. We've got like what's going on with the Guild and what's going on with Phantom Limb and the Monarch. We've barely talked about the Monarch, who is the best character in the show.
One of the most dynamic and flexible characters in the show is the Monarch, for sure.
And
The Monarch!
The Monarch! The
man who
Girlfriend, fetch me the acid magnets.
The man who understands exactly what he wants in life, and his entire struggle is about not getting to be the man he wants to be.
That's right.
And
the Monarch is the best
be,
character in the show who isn't Hank Venture.
And the man he wants to be is the ultimate and eternal enemy of Rusty Venture. And folks, haven't we all been there?
That's why the Monarch is the best character. That's why Hank and the Monarch are the best characters in the show, because they both hate Rusty Venture.
Hank is my favorite character, but it's only because I can relate to speaking for crazy dead people.
That's correct.
I love Showdown Cremation Creek, and I love some of the earlier episodes in this, like Victor Act November.
Sure.
Because of what it does to establish the Monarch's relationship with other characters who aren't Rusty.
Right.
Right? Where it's like, you get that great bit in Victor Act November where Brock bursts into the stall that Monarch is sitting in, and he holds a knife to Monarch's neck, and he just goes, "Oh, hey, Brock."
Yeah.
And he's like,
Nice
"Yeah,
ass.
I had nothing to do with this. You want Phantom Limb? He's in the stall next to me." And
Right.
He goes, "Nice ass, Samson."
Nice ass.
And then in Showdown Cremation Creek 2, or Showdown Cremation Creek, where you get him with Brock again, and with the boys, and Brock's relationship with the henchmen.
Yeah.
Where it's like, when he's not killing them, he couldn't give a shit
Right.
about all of this.
He's just super cool about all of this. Absolutely.
We also, I will say for season 2, because we talked about it briefly in season 1, but like one of my favorite, and again, another archetypical Venture Brothers episode that has basically nothing to do with Public or Hammer, is we get Viva Los Muertos, which is the one episode written fully by Ben Edlund.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one, and I always love it because it's the very high concept thing of, okay, here's the A plot. They kill a henchman, they turn him into a zombie Frankenstein, and he kind of goes on a rampage, and they're trying to figure that out. But also their compound gets broken into by the Scooby-Doo gang, who are all actually famous criminals from the 20th century.
Yeah.
And there's like a whole like weird like thriller like house break-in fucking like the Purge ass kind of aspect to it that ends in like them all getting killed horribly, but also they'll still show up in a later episode.
Yeah.
Anyway.
My favorite other little wrinkle to that is there is a episode later in, I think it's either season 2 or season 3, where a bunch of villains are at a bar and they're talking about who has the better ass, Velma or Daphne, as if they are real people. So supposedly the Groovy Gang are literally just dressing up as them to get away with being in like terrible places.
Yeah,
so they can just get away with killing somebody.
The episode, I know what you're talking about. The episode actually, it's the one where Venture's in therapy.
That's right.
And he's talking to Johnny Quest, and they're talking about how they always knew that he always saw that Velma was a lesbian, and Action Johnny says, "I got a case of herpes that says otherwise."
Jesus Christ.
So it's not great, but it's better than them being serial killers, I guess.
So like they're serial killers who are like deliberately. They're copycat serial killers.
Yeah, this is what I meant when I said earlier, where it's like the Venture Brothers never feels like too mean about it,
Right?
Because like they could have said, "Oh no, this is the actual Scooby-Doo gang," and in our universe they're like this, and because like there's also the episode where in the episode where they crash land in Underland. where they're talking about the costume party.
Right.
And they say the Impossible Family won because they dressed like the Fantastic Four.
That's right.
I will say, just because I'm not going to remember it on the next episode, if we ever do a categorization for what is the episode of Venture Brothers that is my least favorite, I think that one's probably it.
Is it really?
Love Bites?
Yeah, Love Bites. I just don't like it.
It's just a bottle
Love
episode.
Bites sucks.
It's not a bottle episode. It's not even a good bottle episode. It's very the exemplary for, hey, why did Underbite stop showing up in the show? Yeah, we had no idea what to do with him.
It does.
Like, we had his character design. That's really all we figured out.
It does have one of the best jokes in the series, though.
Which is
when Brock is torturing the henchman and he grabs his balls and he thinks he feels a lump.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. That is a good one. But like, I do agree. I think Love Bites is probably in like the bottom 5.
It's definitely a flyover episode.
Ironically enough, considering I was gonna say, I think my favorite joke in that one, since I will be positive about my least favorite episode, is the joke where it is framed like one of those countries you'd go to in Resident Evil, right? Where it's like framed like it's some like horrible backwater, like European microstate, and it turns out it's like right outside Detroit.
Yeah. But like, it's definitely, I think it is the perfect distillation of that mid-2000s humor, that early Venture Brothers. You watch it and you go like, okay.
Yeah.
You're pulling at your collar, like, yikes.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of stuff in Love Bites is like that.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, okay, all right.
And like, I'm okay with that when the jokes are really funny.
But the jokes are funny enough to justify it. Yeah.
Like, which is to say, like, Arrested Development has a lot of that.
Yes.
There are a lot of there's a lot of Arrested Development that you could not write even 5 years later, probably.
Yes.
But that show is also the construction of jokes in that show is like immaculate, and so it's like everything kind of ends up getting a pass.
It's the Akewood problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Of you shouldn't have written those jokes, and I shouldn't be laughing at them.
Sure. You did, however, write those jokes very well, so it's funny. It's like that one post about like, don't ask the McElroys why they don't have their Max Fun bit from like 2013 up, right? And it's like, why don't they? And there's this bit where it's like Justin talks about having his wedding in a theater. Or no, Travis talks about having his wedding in a theater, and Justin says, I don't know, man, it sounds kind of faggy, which I'm allowed to say that. But someone's like, but someone's like, no, they should leave that one up. You're allowed to say it if it's objectively funny.
That's right. Exactly.
It's one of those things where like a lot of these examples, they still age well despite being like really bad potato chips.
Yes.
Love Bites is an episode where you're just like, oh man, look at this. It is a bottle of Crystal Pepsi from 1990, and you open it and you immediately regret it because you're now in the hospital.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
like a lot of the running jokes of, like, especially the first 2 seasons, the jokes about Dr. Girlfriend's voice and like, ooh, is she a man?
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's all kind of tacky. But it all works out ultimately because the joke is, oh, Dr. Girlfriend's just been smoking since she was like 14.
Right.
And the Monarch did not know this the entire time he has been dating her for 10 plus years.
Yeah.
And he doesn't care one bit. Like, that's funny.
That one's like, when did you start smoking? And she's like, 1994?
Yeah, she's literally been smoking since like the fucking 80s, right? And she's just like, I mean, I can't believe you didn't notice, right? And like, that's funny. A lot of the jokes in Love Bites are like that, but not
funny. And it is just emblematic of the thing where it's like we gave...
Sure, it's 2006.
We gave Rusty a Doctor Doom, and the joke is he's Doctor Doom.
And that's it.
And then they went, well it's kind of it.
It's kind of it.
He is one of those characters that is just... He's like Orpheus, but you can use Orpheus for things. And
sure, Orpheus is the nice guy. Underbite has nothing going for him.
And Underbite, we don't know if he blew up in Gargantua 2, but he probably did.
He just kind of stopped showing up.
No one cared enough to find out for sure.
That's right.
But no, also Showdown at Cremation Creek has one of my favorite lines that just pop up in my head all the time, which is the guy from the labyrinth turned into a bird.
Yeah, it's so good. So I need to tell you, you guys already know, but to tell the audience, I only watched the Venture until this most recent, like, let's all watch Venture Brothers with my friends. I actually own the first 2 seasons of the Venture Brothers on DVD. And that's all of the Venture Brothers I had ever seen until I watched it with these freaks.
Yay.
So one of my favorite lines from the Venture Brothers until I started watching it with my friends was, I think the guy from Labyrinth just turned into a bird.
I love that because it's such a perfect Hank line.
Yeah.
It's so perfect.
It's the idea that he has seen Labyrinth and does not know who David Bowie is.
Like there's also the line in like season 7 where Dean where he's kind of having an existential crisis about his different identities, and he says, am I the guy from Split?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I don't think you have dissociative identity disorder. I think you just have an overactive imagination. And he says, oh, like the guy from Split when he's the guy from X-Men.
I admit my biggest problem with that sequence is that him in the Rocky Horror Picture Show costume was not one of the alternate personalities.
Yeah.
So we can't.
No, actually, no. Never mind. Because it occurs to me that them not putting it there means that he did not throw that identity away.
Oh,
well, no, it's also Saturn. That's just a character a costume is putting on. Everything else is an original Hank invention.
That's right.
So he's got one in that outfit, but it's just a Hank invention.
We can talk a little bit about it. My favorite part is going back and understanding that the thing that they wanted to do for season 8 but weren't able to do. So a rip to all of those stories that are gone by the wayside is they were going to reveal that all of those crazy Hank identities were like the souls of the Hank clones who had died, which is why one of them is the Bat, because it's deliberately referencing that time he jumped off the roof wearing a Batman outfit.
That's correct.
Amazing.
So presumably there wasn't an Enrique Matassa that he was dressed up as and he died.
That means there's a Hank ghost hiding inside Rusty's body right now.
That's right.
Yeah. No, they got the sub out, so it's fine.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
We'll get to that in season 4.
Oh, yeah.
So
in the meantime, we should probably move on to season 3.
Yay!
Yes, which is where I think.
Before we start, between Ben and Sarah, which of you wants to be the one who argues for season 3, being the best one of these 4?
Do you want to do it, Ben?
I'll argue for season 3 because
you for season 3 because
Yeah.
4. We can open the next episode with season 4. I think I can argue for 3 because I'll just agree with everything you say about 4. That works perfectly. There you go.
So
See, the thing about the Gorge, folks, is that the reason the Gorge with Ben and Sarah exists is because Ben and I are the same person.
we really
After
are.
17 years of being friends, we're just like, what are the best
really
seasons of
been
the
that
Venture
long?
Brothers? We both know. It's 3 and 4.
Sarah and I are just a Doc and Jackson.
We are
duo.
21 and 24.
We need to end this episode with the both of you doing a 21 and 24 impersonation. It'd
We
be so fucking
totally
funny.
could.
But no, okay, so season 3 is definitely, I think season 3, one of the things that's really like striking about is that this is where where it abandons all pretense of being Johnny Quest parody, and we are our own thing now. This is our own. It's establishing the direction the show is going to go in from now on.
And to a certain sense, much like Star Trek: The Next Generation is a series that you can start at season 3, the Venture Brothers kind of becomes the Venture Brothers at the beginning of season 3.
Absolutely.
It steps away from being an Adult Swim show and being its own identity, right?
Yeah.
Like this you could put this on a different network and it would be the same, right? Like that idea. And it starts off with a bang. Shadow Man 9 and the Cradle of Destiny is you get so much history, and this is the season where we're going to get lore.
Right.
We are going to be introduced to the guild in a much broader sense. We are introduced to the monarch and how he thinks and how he works, why Dr. Girlfriend is attracted to him. Like the whole history between him and Phantom Limb. We get introduced to Trucules, which is great. I love Trucules.
Trucules is my boy.
This had season 3, just going down the list of episodes it has that are just absolute bangers. Shadow Man 9, The Doctor is Sin.
Correct.
Home is Where the Hate Is. The Invisible Hand of Fate. Now Museum, Now You Don't. The Lepidopterist. Orb. It's got
Dr.
a fucking
Quim.
orb. It's got
It has
Dr.
an
Quim.
orb. It has all of them.
These are
It has Tears of a Sea Cow.
I was just about to say.
Here's a sea cow. It has
I have cuttlefish.
It has, and it's got one of the best season. Actually, you know what? No, I think, yeah, it is one of the best like season finales for sure. I think it's a little bit on the lower end of the top half, but it's still really, really good.
Sure.
These are the episodes where I look at, and I'm like, these are where the characters kind of flesh out and become who they're going to be going forward. And I one of the things I love about this show is that like this isn't development of Doc and Jackson getting better at writing. This is these characters are developing.
Yeah.
Because when you ever see a flashback of Brock that takes place before season 3, he's acting like he was in season 1 and 2.
Right.
I think that's perfectly exemplified in Home is Where the Hate Is when they're at the party and Brock just kind of sneaks off. He does the thing that all like
introverts at a party
they do, is where they sneak off to the dining room, or like the sitting room where the pet is locked up, and they just flip on public access television and just get caught up watching something. In this case, watching this PBS special about a giant crossbow.
Yeah, no, like I could absolutely make the argument for 3 or 4. I think now that I'm thinking about it more, I think I like 4 more.
Yeah.
But 3 is, like you said, where the show comes into its own identity and it suddenly understands what it wants to be about, which is primarily about failure and the idea of these OSI freaks versus these guild freaks. And those are the two motivating forces that will now basically propel the entire rest of the show until the movie, right?
And I want to talk about that specifically because I have such strong feelings about the Lepidopterists.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that episode to me, Brock's bit with JJ about like these guys have their systems, you got to play by the rules, is so emblematic to me of not only like the show's theme of like you got to actually play by this organization's rules, or else they are going to start actually killing people, right? Like the reason the system exists is for everyone's safety. But it's also about the world, in our world, in which like
absolutely.
If you're gonna be in this society, you've got to play by the rules. If you're gonna hang out with your friends and you're gonna participate in like these activities with them, you have to follow the rules or else they're gonna kick you out.
Right.
Like you have to play the game. We're all playing the game here.
Yeah.
We're all playing Dungeons and Dragons, and you have to keep your character sheet up to date.
But that's totally what it is this idea of Dan Olson talks about it in one of his videos, which is the invisible circle, right? The idea of a game, and we are all playing this game right until somebody karate chops the goalie in the throat. Right? We're all playing soccer until somebody karate chops the goalie in the throat.
Exactly.
and that's what that's when the Venture Brothers becomes about like having to live in the real world.
Yeah.
It's when the show becomes about, like, the first 2 seasons are about how Rusty Venture, boy adventurer. That's a really weird thing to say out
I think that's
loud,
why they did it like that.
That's why they did that, huh?
Mm-hmm.
But it's when Rusty Venture, boy adventurer, goes from being like a washed up child star the way he is in the first 2 seasons to an adult man who is already past his prime. He was in his prime when he was 9.
Yeah.
Right? And now he has to live in the real world with the rest of us. And that is when the Venture Brothers finds its stride, is in 3 and 4, when it becomes about living in the real world.
Yeah.
In its own way, because that's when that 3 and 4 is when the restrictions of the guild and its rules and the OSI and its rules, that's when they are really imposed upon all of the characters. And that's when the Venture Brothers realizes what it's about, which is we're all adults and we all fucked up, right? Like, we're all failures. None of us, nobody lives up to being what they wanted to be when they were 9. Right? And now here you are, you're living in the real world. How are you going to deal with living in the real world? Right? That's what the Venture Brothers becomes, and that's what it continues to be about all the way into the movie. Yeah. Which is, you're living in the real world now. What do you do with it?
Mm-hmm. And I think it's interesting to contrast that idea of you're living in the world, you have to play by the rules, of Brock telling JJ, the guild has this system that you need to follow and play along with, or else you're the asshole.
Right.
It's interesting to contrast that with the B plot of 21-24 and Henchman 1, where Henchman 1 is taking this too seriously.
Right.
And is getting too invested in these rules, whereas 21 and 24 are like, dude, you just have to play along. Like, you don't have to commit.
It's literally they're explaining to JJ, yes, you have to play by the rules, while 21 and 24 are going like, you need to do it to the spirit of the law, not to the letter of the law.
Exactly.
21 is just doing that one bit from Terrence McKenna where he's just like, take it easy, dude. But take it.
Take it.
Yeah. Again, the line that sticks with me is when Scott Hall, Henchman 1, is talking about like how the floor could be laser trapped, and 21 just goes, "Fuck it, nothing's gonna happen to me."
Exactly.
I personally love the part where they literally do the Scooby-Doo dressed as like wax figurines, and 24 said, "Dude, I've always wanted to do that.
I've always wanted to do that."
Or the bit where like Scott wants to dive into the sewers to sneak into the base, and they're like, and 21's like, show of hands who peed in the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just it's like you have to sit down and play the game, okay? Everyone's here to have fun. You have to play, all right? You can't just sit on the couch and do nothing.
Sure, but you also have to play. Like, if you are going to agree to play, right?
Right.
You have to play by the rules.
Yeah. No, that doesn't mean you can't.
Brothers is about.
You can't have fun with the rules.
Absolutely, but you still have to follow the rules.
Yeah, you still have to participate. You still have to be part of this dumb thing we started up because we all agreed we wanted to do it.
Sure, because it's more fun that way.
Yeah.
Like, isn't life more fun when there are dumb, asshole rich people wearing their stupid villain costumes, making big, loud speeches at the heroes, right? Isn't that more fun?
It's guys like Brock Sampson looking at Jonah and looking at JJ and being like, "You're not better than us."
That's totally what it is.
Like, you think you're above this?
Get
down here, asshole!
It's the scene from oh my god, why am I blanking on it? The movie with Anne Hathaway and Helen Mirren about fashion.
Devil Wears Prada?
Yes! There's that whole scene in The Devil Wears Prada.
That's right.
Where Helen Mirren tells Anne Hathaway, like, oh, you think you're above this. And, that's what the Venture Brothers is about. The Venture Brothers is that scene.
Ironically, that scene, because I mentioned it earlier, that scene reminds me of the original conclusion for, or the original, bit of conclusion for Arrested Development, which is basically, I don't know if any of you have seen it, but, in that show itself, it's you have Michael Bluth, and he's kind of your protagonist straight man guy, because he's the sort of relatively normal guy who lives with a family of complete psychopaths, right?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
But part of the resolution of that show is him coming to the realization of, you're worse than them.
Yeah,
because
totally.
because the problem is they're all sick. They can't do anything about being how they are. You have the ability to have chosen a better life, and you instead wallow like this, for no reason. And that's kind of what you get with JJ here. It's look, if you want to be a guy who does super science, and you want to make your chops doing super science, you have to live like a super scientist. You don't get to also just be like a guy who does what you want. You don't
get to be Steve Jobs. You either have to be Dr. Quest, or you have to be Steve Jobs. You can't be both.
Yeah, exactly. That's you can't have all of the cool parts about being an adventurer and none of the bad parts. You can't. That's not how this works. Okay?
Because the other people who live in this life too need that shit, because they don't have as nice of situation as you do, and they need to have some sort of just certainty that they won't get killed by a death laser.
Exactly. That's you're not venture. One of the theses is you're not above us. Okay. Everyone here loves talking about dumb nerd shit and participating in D&D and LARPing, and you're not better than us because you think it's dumb.
Brock just look, I watched a 57-year-old man give birth to you. I was there. That happened 2-3 years ago tops.
The episode before the Lepidopterist is Not Museum Now You Don't, where Rusty and Brock get a chance to look at the dumb squabbles and realize how dumb it is, and Brock is yeah, welcome to my world.
Yeah.
Which is also a great episode, because again, it goes back to the rock and roll aspect of it, which Scaramantula's big plan is to get more people in line at his autograph table.
Yeah.
And it works.
So good.
And it works because he looks over at Team Venture, and they are furious that more people are talking to the villains than them.
It's so good. That's his whole evil scheme, is to just get people to ask him for his autograph.
I continue to love how season 3, it starts in season 2, but as the series goes on, the Guild of Calamitous Intent is filled with nothing but aging rock stars who have nothing better to do than pull petty supervillain shit.
Yeah.
It is the funniest fucking thing in the world.
Well, especially for people, for the ones of that era too. It's they're all fucking 70 years old. What are they gonna do except hide a Werther's behind your ear?
Right? You are 70-year-old rock stars and actors who get their kicks out of going to conventions now, right? You got nothing better to do than stand on stage and recite the lines that you said when you said 20, 30 years ago. Right. In some cult classic movie, right? That's your whole thing, and you know what? Scaramantula's I might as well embrace it. I'm gonna have fun with it.
If not for his whole thing that he does with the guild, I would half expect you to run into Dr. Z and just be oh hey Dr. Z, what are you doing? He's I voice a cartoon character.
Yeah.
They pay me $50,000 per episode.
Yeah, that's the thing is you can either embrace it and realize that you are part of this dumb, stupid world that you've invested in and you thought was going to be really cool when you were 20 to 30, and now that's all you'll ever be, and you might as well go with it and roll with it and have your fun with it, or you can be like JJ and try to get away from it. But no, get back here, idiot.
But yeah, no.
Where do you think you're going?
But that's the thing, is that JJ is I'm above this, while living on Spider Skull Island.
Yeah.
Like,
with a Voltron that he made.
With a Voltron that he made. Like, you're not above this, dude. You are in this as much as the rest of us.
And I love that bit where he's like, okay, well, I'll just kill the Monarch. And then
Right.
Brock's like, no, dude, that's not how it works. He's your bad guy.
Yeah, he's your bad guy.
There's a reason Batman doesn't kill his villains, because then they'd stop writing stories.
Exactly.
You're supposed to foil him, and he says curses and then flies off, and then you do it again next Sunday.
Yeah,
you do it again next week, and you fill out your forms, and you all agree to play within the circle.
And then,
which I think before we move on from that, I think is very funny, because the moral of it is like, hey man, you do have to try and maintain the status quo.
Right.
A show that famously hates the status quo.
Absolutely.
And what it boils down to is ultimately JJ asks the question is, why do this? And ultimately the answer is, it's fun.
It's fun.
It's kind of fun.
It's kind of fun.
I love that Brock goes this entire time, like, as you know, famously disgusted by the idea of having to use firearms. But oh my god, he would love to fire that giant death ray cannon.
Yeah, old school 50s death ray.
Because he wanted to do that all his life.
And that's where you get this idea, like not even Brock is above all this.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Brock geeks out about death lasers and giant crossbows, and he plays along with some dumb jokes every so often.
Exactly.
Brock is probably more into
more
this
than
than literally any of the main cast, except for not even more than the Monarch, because the Monarch famously only does this so he can arch Dr. Venture. He actually hates the rest of the pageantry.
He
just
the
does
rest
it for
of
love of the
fucking,
game.
like, bureaucracy. Like, the Monarch does not want to be tied up in the bureaucracy of the guild. He just wants to arch Rusty. Brock loves it.
The Monarch is the quintessential rock star. He wants to be on stage and performing. He doesn't give a shit about anything else.
Right.
He has people for that.
The logistics of having to work about the concerts, is the mic right? No, it doesn't matter. I just want to kill Venture.
And much as I have described Rusty Venture as being an identical character to Emiya Kiritsugu, I must posit that the Monarch is in fact Kotomine Kiri.
No! Shut up! I'm not going to let you take this from me.
All I'm saying is his one desire is to find out what kind of heart is beating in that man and whether it's baboon or not.
Hey, Dr. Venture, do you like mapo tofu? Would you like me to describe how it looks like organ meat?
Saturn is fully doing the Galatians 3:19, right?
I hung out with this Babylonian dude. I think he was trying to boink me.
I hate this podcast.
No, you don't. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here.
You're right.
You know what I want to talk about? I want to talk about the Doctor of Sin and Orb.
Orb is good.
Both of those are such good Rusty episodes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like Oates mentioned with the Doctor of Sin, like Rusty. This is one of the moments that sold me on Dr. Venture as a dynamic and growing character.
Sure,
is him being confronted with Killinger going, you have every right to be the bad guy here.
Sure, you have more than earned the right to be a villain, right? Like, you have this shitty dad, and you have this smug brother, right?
Who has the more heroic chiseled jaw.
Sure.
The more heroic voice, whereas Dr. Venture is is much higher and more conniving.
Sure, he's got that Disney villain coding of being a little bit more gay, a little bit more fey, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and it's it's my favorite part of that too, is that, like, we also get that whole episode being the premise of, like, if you did this, you would solve all of your mental illnesses without medicine. You would work through all your shit. But you have to be willing to admit you're a villain.
And there's also, like, the idea that, like, it's not just, like, okay, you are in the perfect position to turn all of this around and you can be a villain. You can make your life a bit more successful. You can become the kind of person you've always wanted to be. Mm-hmm. It's not just that. It's Killinger thinking he would make an amazing villain. Like, he wouldn't just be like, oh yeah, I'm a super villain now. We swapped sides. I'm still the same guy. It's like, no, you could probably be like a level 10 arch if you really wanted to.
He would excel at this.
He just needs to put away the dilly-dallying and the stinking thinking.
And like,
if he really leans into it, he could really make someone's life miserable and have a fun time doing it.
And he'd be great, because like Rusty's big thing is that he is a supervillain who, like, he is a super scientist, who is kind of dismissive of like normal people's concerns about morality.
He wants to build the walking eye. He doesn't want to build a new kind of toaster.
He wants to build a teleporter, and it's not a fucking death ray. It's just a laser that melts buildings. What do you want from me?
Exactly. He just wants to build the fucking death ray. Like,
not because he wants to use it, but because
it's fun to make it.
What do super scientists build? Death rays.
And I will say, just to mention it while we're on the episode, that is what the plot of the pilot we didn't watch is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm being very literal. That is, whenever they make reference to him getting banned from a conference because he brought a death ray to it, they're talking about the pilot.
The one that I like the little thing that always stuck in my craw when I first watched The Doctor of Sin is when Killinger presents Rusty with the arching rights to Jonas, to JJ. His first thought is, but JJ isn't a villain. I can't arch him. He's not a villain. Mm-hmm. The thought that he might be the villain doesn't occur to him right away.
Yeah.
Because he still thinks of himself as a good guy.
Yeah.
This whole time, whether it's ego or like some modicum of like genuine desire to help humanity, which we'll see later in Orb, he's always thought like, no, I'm on the good guy side.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like that's kind of my friction with like season 5, 6, and 7 Venture Brothers trying to be more sentimental, is that it doesn't really sell me on Rusty's desire to be a good guy. Like, Rusty still... Season 3 is where... Like, that's why I kind of waffle. Like, which season is the best? Is it 3 or is it 4? I still think it's 4. But 3 is where Rusty is still trying to find his desire to be a good guy, right?
Right.
And the rest of the show doesn't really sell me on that, even though it tells me that he wants that.
We'll get into it later, but I think part of that is that he gets actively suppressed whenever he actually does try to genuinely do good.
Sure, absolutely.
And eventually he just kind of gives up on trying to be altruistic because he knows by this point it's not going to pan out. So he just tries to be the better guy.
He tries to be the adult in the room.
Yeah, that's it. He tries, and we'll get into that because there's so many episodes where he is.
Oh my god, absolutely. He's the adult in the room, totally.
He's not the hero. He's the adult. That's where he settles on being, basically.
But I do think that there is something compelling in The Doctor of Sin and in Orb with Rusty still wants to be the good guy. And it's kind of like there are so many good characters in the Venture Brothers, and I guess we'll all talk about them next episode.
We have so much to talk about. This could be 3 parts.
I was saying, I remember that we had that when we were going around this, like, we're going to all pitch our favorite of the first 4 seasons because we're definitely going to do all 4 seasons in this episode, right? God, we're fucking stupid.
That's so stupid.
I'm looking at the episode list for season 4, and I'm just like, fuck.
I know.
We spent a whole episode talking about season 4.
There's so much about 1 and 2 that I still wanted to talk about, but I'm like, I have to sacrifice.
Like, teaser for next time, even though I'm not like on the team, it's my favorite season. It's the season where fucking Dragoon and the Red Mantle start being characters.
That's exactly right. Dragoon is the best season in the show.
I love them so much, and
they're so good.
What if we just scrap it all and just make Adventure Brothers like Sub podcast for
what if December is just Venture Month? Okay, let's just do that.
I love that idea because we do Venture December and then basically immediately go into Gorges.
Yeah, exactly. You know what?
Fuck.
Yeah, I would like to not have to look at news articles for an entire month.
Sure.
But
and you know what? If you want to be topical and fit it in, I can't. Here, I'll do my topical thing right now.
No,
well, we already did the topical thing. Kissinger just died.
Yeah, right. And also we're doing our topical thing is we're going to stream the fucking Game Awards in 2 days.
I'll do one more topical thing for you because I want to air this live on air. I just found out a second Summerton video has hit the towers.
No.
Wait, a second or third?
I think it's from someone named Todd in the Shadows.
Yeah, that one was out earlier today. Yeah, I'm starting to watch that one. It's really good.
Yeah, I just got liked it. I'm like, oh fuck yes, someone already has a 2-hour-long video of going video by video on this dude's shit and calling him out on all his shit.
Yeah.
God, I'm living.
H-Bomber guy would be a character in the OSI.
Oh god, he's super wood.
H-Bomber guy is a level 10 arch and he only strikes once every year. But when he does, he ruins someone's entire career.
Yeah, guys, what am I talking about? That's Snoopy on his off days.
Yes!
Oh, that's true.
I want the season 8 episode where it's revealed that Snoopy is guild infamy.
Right.
Oh, well, that's what we need. We need the episode where it turns out that Snoopy is an extremely famous drama YouTuber, and that's just what he does to keep his skills sharp when he's not actively doing a life or death mission. Is he investigates someone and completely busts their whole life apart.
I've got a lot more about season 3 though. So let's get through.
Yeah, let's go through your notes, Ben. Let's do it.
Season again, this is where the characters expand and grow and everything. That's really elevated in What Goes Down Must Come Up, where when you mentioned season 1 with the innuendo in careers in science, they bring that back in What Goes Down Must Come Up when it's Brock and Rusty and the drill.
Yeah.
And eventually Brock is like, I'm not doing this anymore. You promised no penetration jokes. And it's you see them goofing off, and you get the bit Now Museum Now You Don't, where the Ventures leave, and Rusty's like, no, we have to go back, Brock. He's family. Brock goes,
fuck out of here.
Get the fuck out of here.
Again, those two cannot beat the allegations.
They're never beating the allegations.
They really
Absolutely
can't.
not. They are genuinely in love.
The real reason for the season 3 finale is that he had just broken up with Rusty the night before.
That's right.
That's the real reason he left the OSI.
That's right.
But
Doc, I think we need some time apart.
Brock, what are
you're just getting a little too clingy.
I'm gonna go kill Hitler now.
I love the lead up to that, because we get the cool bit in Orb where Rusty, without even any provocation or any needling from anyone, someone with higher morals, is no, we can't just activate the orb. We don't know what it does. We have to study it. We have to go through the process. And if this can benefit humanity, then we can use it.
Sure.
He's actually being responsible with it.
Yeah.
And he's wearing the Rusty Venture outfit.
He has definitely gotten his children killed just enthusiastically pressing the big red button more than once.
And I think you get these are these weird shining pinpoint lights that shine through all of the suppression that Rusty has gone through in his life.
The diamond in the rough moments.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
This thing where the Rusty that could have been, that wasn't beaten down by having been raised by Jonas Venture and the original Team Venture, where the version of Rusty that didn't have the Action Man point a gun at his head while he slept and pull the trigger so he could feel the echo in his skull, where he didn't have that.
Right.
Is you get those rare glimpses of that Rusty shining through.
Sure, it's the first time, Orb is the first time Rusty decides to be the adult in the room.
Yeah.
And
like,
it's the payoff I wish we got more throughout the rest of the season too.
Absolutely.
Where it's like you see him having had that realization, like, wait, I'm kind of basically a villain. I need to course correct.
Yeah,
and you get him actually like very consciously going, I'm going to course correct right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's cool. I like it.
It's good. I think Orb is really good because it's like when he really wants to be a good guy.
Yeah.
Like he has that realization at the end of the Doctor's Sin where he goes like, oh, Killinger thinks I should be a bad guy, but I don't want to be a bad guy.
Yeah, he flat out says, but I don't want to be the bad guy.
I don't want to be the bad guy. I want to be the good guy.
Yeah.
And Orb is when that character arc kind of comes back around and he says like, okay, I'm actively making the decision to be a good guy. And I think part of my friction with the Venture Brothers, despite liking this show a lot, is that I wish we had had more moments of Rusty deciding I want to be the good guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think why Doctor's Sin works and why the conclusion to that works is that you see him having this realization that the way that the world works in his head is not the way the world works as far as everyone else sees it.
Yeah.
And you see him go, then that means I'm wrong.
Right.
And it's like one of those things where it's like, oh, it's sincere kind of productive humility that you just don't, like, except for Orb, you don't really get that much, but like, you could have used more of it. It could have sold the stuff later.
There could have been more opportunities for it to happen. Basically,
because he has plenty of opportunities to do that, which then he does the classic joke of I'm going to do the shitty thing because I'm Rusty Venture.
Yeah.
And it's like you could have like made that a 90-10, a little more of a. I take a 60-40. I think that would be fair.
It does happen a bit more in season 4, and then it kind of stops happening because once season 4 is done, we have like half the episodes per season.
Yeah, we don't get the opportunity for it to pop up as often because
it sucks.
At the end of the day, Venture Brothers is still a comedy, and it's not. It never crosses over to comedy drama. It is a comedy. There are a bit more echoes of it in the later seasons that I want to talk about because like whenever it does happen, like I latch onto it.
Sure, absolutely.
Like super hard. But also the family that stays together as a finale. One of the best, I think.
It's pretty good. For me,
high up there.
My attachment to it principally is Brock just going, what year is it? 2008? Yeah, I think I'm gonna go kill half the cast of No More Heroes. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
The characters we get introduced, the one shot like Latour and
Hair Trigger. What's the fisherman's name? I don't remember.
I forgot, but it's
the Mad Lore or something like that.
They're so good at puns. Of course, the names they give their characters are phenomenal.
I don't remember him as much because in that entire segment, I was too busy paying attention to Shore Leave and Holy Diver.
Oh right, Shore Leave and Sky Pilot
we finally get a lot of Shore Leave.
Yeah, we finally get Holy Diver and Sky Pilot.
It's the only book you'll ever need, my friend.
Which
just Hank's voice.
I know. I love any time you can tell it's Christopher McCullough.
When you can just tell that it's just Hank and Dean again.
Because whenever you get the bit where Hank's voice like gets forced, like whenever he's like yelling or when he's like putting on a character voice, and you can tell, oh, that's just another character in the show.
That's right.
I do love that the original Venture Squad, the original Team Venture, includes this fishman who goes on to become a Jehovah's Witness and like barely does anything in the show.
Yeah.
It's like he's like one of the few characters where every so often when we're doing stuff with Team Venture, I just kind of like blink my eyes and go, they forgot that guy exists.
They forgot that guy exists, didn't they? They forgot about the fishman again.
The full Team Venture roster is so funny because it feels like every time they show up, there's someone new in the group.
Yeah.
And someone missing, and they didn't explain why.
I love. I honestly think season 3 might be my least favorite of the finales, but that's mostly because like there has to be a least favorite, right?
Sure, of course.
I don't have a
Something
choice.
has to be at the bottom of
You
the
end up
list.
at the bottom. But that's also partly because I think Operation Prom is the funniest fucking thing in the entire universe.
Operation Prom is
really
my favorite season finale. And
I think Operation
next
Prom
up-
is also mine.
Yeah.
And I think like I don't know if the season 3 is my least favorite, but I think where it fails for me is it's the kind of the beginning of like Venture Brothers not ending on brick jokes necessarily.
Sure.
And like, cause it wraps up in a way it's very clean. I'm like, no, I think you could have cut this like maybe 2 minutes earlier and just refused to elaborate.
Well, no, I mean they do cut this season 3 at one of the best cutoffs of all time, which is 24 dies.
That's right. That's true.
Which is one of the most shocking parts of it all. But the line that stuck with me forever in the season 3 finale is I ate a Labrador Retriever once.
We barely got to talk about hatred.
We didn't get to talk about hatred.
No, I feel like
hatred more
before
next
we
season.
stop, we have to at least break, because this is also season 3 is well, I guess like season 3 is the first season he actually gets to really be a character.
Yeah.
He becomes more of one later, and I guess actually we did, even though we were planning originally to do 4 seasons, we did split this correctly vis-a-vis our original plan of the first episode's going to be the one where 24 is alive, and the second one is going to be all the content where 24 is dead.
That's true. That's a good point.
But Hatred's so fucking good.
Hatred owns.
I love his first episode where he introduces himself, the bit where he just shoots Doc in the stomach.
Yeah,
and it's like rubber bullets.
He spends the entire episode like softballing him and like quizzing him, like doing the things you would do if you're gonna get into like fucking like unsafe sex role play with someone, where he's like polling him about his likes and dislikes and his and things, whatever. It just ends the episode by shooting him in the fucking gut and laughing about it, like, hey.
My favorite thing about Sergeant Hatred is the slow build up to him, because he has been a background joke reference throughout all of season 2, and then you see him in season 2 at the finale, and he's with Princess Tiny Feet, who once again
Princess Tiny Feet.
Look how tiny her feet are,
like little corn niblet. That's Brendan Smalls.
I don't know, Doc. I mean, I guess we can save season 4 for next time. I was just kind of looking forward to it. It keeps the thoughts of all those beautiful boys away.
Again, please watch the State Bentley video, because he does the best bit where he puts like the most immaculate Sergeant Hatred like impression ever, and then ends it with like a minute of like sustained laughter. Anyway, he's a convicted pedophile.
Anyway, he's a pedophile. and where he has to clarify in the video, like fictional he's my favorite fictional
pedophile. Yeah.
Well, I love that, because A, he's fictional, but B, it raises the bad reading comprehension question of like, wait a minute, who's your favorite real life pedophile?
Steak?
Is it Allen Ginsberg? Because I feel like that's the only reasonable answer, because you could at least frame it as an art thing.
Is it Roman Polanski?
I was going to say the other option is Julius Caesar.
I guess
he is a guy. He is a guy who loves Rome.
It's really is a testament that not only could Doc Hammer and Jackson Public make this character the joke that he is a pedophile who has allegedly actually did molest Dean and Hank at one point.
It is one of the things that I find it's a really interesting wrinkle. Like, Hammer and Public have gone on record saying like they don't like the idea of retconning. Like Brock's character as he appears in 1, they don't like very much, but they do acknowledge it whenever they do flashbacks by reminding you that Brock did used to act like that. We're not going to backpedal on this thing. They kind of wish that they didn't do the thing with Hank and Dean.
They mentioned that there would have been so much funnier if they were like, yeah, everyone else is weirded out by him, and Hank and Dean just have no fucking clue what everyone's so upset about.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's so much. There's so much more funny. Like, you can get so much more jokes out of that.
It's never made explicit, so you can just say like we know that for sure that Hank and Dean have been kidnapped by him at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But
and Hank remembers things and Dean does not.
Yeah. But Hank could be, because he's always been the one that's more self-aware of things. Like, he could have just been aware that, like, hey, this guy is weird.
Which raises the idea. I'm sorry. This is my venture theory. We're gonna have a lot of these, I think, in season 2 or in episode 2. But the idea that Dean somehow died during the kidnapping, but Hank didn't.
Yeah.
And Hank has no clue.
What was the? There was the. Oh, you know what else we get to meet in season 3? Dermot. We haven't talked about Dermot.
Dermot in 3. Oh, Dermot. Oh,
Well, it's about fucking time. I'm the star of the show, basically.
Basically, the best character
Shell
ever.
gravy.
No one else in the Venture Brothers can do jujitsu like I can.
The thing about Dermot is that when you meet, everybody knew a guy in high school like Dermot.
I knew a guy in elementary school like Dermot.
Exactly.
I have a coworker like this.
Exactly.
Just like, even when you're like that age and you're looking at this guy and you're like, why are you lying about this? We know you're lying.
But the thing about Dermot is that, like, he is the quintessential shit kid teenager who wants attention, right?
Mhm.
Like, that's why he does the shit he does, is because he's doing, like, your standard attention seeking teenage boy behavior, right? Despite everything, Dermot's an okay kid.
Like they talk about how, like, one of the episodes later on where they talk about how Dermot brags that he teaches ninjutsu, and
he's doing a rape prevention class.
Yeah, and he's like, you wear that big baby suit for a rape prevention class.
Yeah,
and it's like he takes care of his mom and sister.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that in the future. All this to say, the thing about Dermot is that, like, yeah, he sucks, but in a realistic way, and like, and he's ultimately like, he's a funny kid, but also, like, good for him that he has the origins he does and lives in proximity to all the shit he does, and basically manages for the show's entire runtime to completely avoid actually getting sucked into the drama.
And
yeah,
I think that's. Go ahead.
He pops in to rag on Hank and Dean, and he interacts with the Henchman like once or twice, but that's kind of it.
You get one of the funniest scenes in his introduction episode, which is Brock realizing he can't beat the fuck out of a kid and, like, conspiring to find a way to get a different kid to beat the fuck out of him.
Yeah, and then eventually falls to Dean, who just beats his ass.
The bit with the Moppets is the best, though, where they're like, "You want us to cut out his tongue?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, I think this might have been a stupid idea."
This might have been a bad idea.
Oh, God, rip the Moppets, by the way.
Rip the Moppets.
Oh,
the
fuck
Moppets
those guys.
suck.
No,
the Moppets suck, but they were very funny.
Rip as in, they're not coming back.
Yeah.
Good for them. But also, like, damn.
Every so often the Moppets will have, like, a good joke that just, like, that fucking floors me. Like, the one where, I think it's in season 4, where Monarch storms out and, like, the Moppets try to stop him. And he just, like, he cusses them out and threatens to kill them. And he's like, you got anything to say to me? And Kevin's like, I was just standing here.
My favorite of their jokes is because I feel like we're honestly not going to talk about them that much.
No, we can get it off.
My favorite of their jokes is when they are trying to break into the Venture compound and they go to Hank and Dean's room and they find his stuffed giraffe and he's like, "What the fuck's this boy still doing with a stuffed giraffe?" And then the other one's like, "I know what I was doing with it." And then, like, they both pause and look at each other like, "Ew, I can't believe I just touched that."
The one where I can't remember why they were trying to. I think it was where they were trying to do the audit for in the self-medication episode or the suicide episode. one of them tries to open the door and he's like, stand back, I'll use my secret mind powers. And then Mrs. the Monarch unlocks the door and he's like, oh man, no, I'll never find out if I have secret mind powers.
It's like the only joke that they have, like, that they make that I appreciate. Like, Unfortunately, I think the Muppets as characters, they're so satellite that most of the jokes that I have laughed about them are Dr. Girlfriend saying something about them.
About the Muppets.
Yeah.
Like
that one time where she is dragging a massive pet bed into their honeymoon suite.
Yeah.
They're dragging it. They're dragging their own pet bed into the foot of the room. Or when when she's feeding them table scraps.
Yeah.
The problem is, they're way too cruel and evil to actually be able to maintain a presence on the show, but also they're insanely funny.
They're, conceptually, they're extremely funny because they're little guys who suck and they're violent, horrible.
It's not like they're doing the pet bed thing because they've been browbeaten into it, like other characters in the show. Their natural instinct is to sleep in a pet bed.
Because they're into it. They want to be close to mom.
The bit where one of them is like, I saw Mom's clean panties. When she was kneeling down, I tried not to look.
Yeah.
They're just so wretched.
I love when it's super later on, but I love when Dr. Girlfriend is trying to have her final arch, and her arch just looks at 21 and assumes that that's Tim Tom. Yeah. And she's like, I didn't know little people could do that.
I didn't know you big.
The other unappreciated joke is that their names are Tim, Tom, and Kevin.
Yeah.
Why does Tim Tom have that name? Is his name literally Timothy Thomas, like Kennedy or something?
I could totally believe it. I'm willing to bet he has an elaborate backstory where he grew up in one of those towns where you just get two first names.
Hold on a second.
He has 14 brothers.
Let's look up the Venturepedia and see if we can find something about that one.
Oh, and let's just while we're doing that, I'm just so sad that Go Team Venture is $600 on eBay.com.
You're just going to have to see if you can find a pirate scan of that.
I'm just gonna have to find
none of us is ever owning that.
We're never owning.
Donate to the Patreon.
I've spent stupid monies on books before. Mm-hmm. I ain't spending that much on any book.
That
book better be required reading for a fucking 5 credit hour college class if I'm spending $600 fucking dollars on it.
If I'm spending $600 on a book, I'm never opening it.
Are you kidding me? Plastic so that I can sell it in 15 years so that my kids can go to college.
Much like a season 4 episode that we'll get to.
Yeah.
Season 4 is the best season.
Oh, that episode is very painful for me, actually. So, I'm very excited to talk about that.
Listen, next episode of us talking about the Venture Brothers will be about season 4. We'll probably spend 2 hours just talking about season 4 because it's the best season in the show. You're welcome.
I have insanely funny news for you.
What's that?
Kevin has a longer page than Tim Tom does.
How?
Yes!
How? They're never apart! I literally can't tell which is which!
Oh, good.
Kevin is the African American one, and Tim Tom is the British one.
Okay.
And the reason Kevin has more is because he shows up in one extra Venture Christmas song.
Oh my god. Amazing.
I hope you appreciate that, folks.
I do appreciate that. What a great show.
Great. Excellent.
It's so hard knowing that I'm going to have to wait an entire episode before we're allowed to talk about season 4. Because I'm still just looking at this episode list, losing my mind.
I know.
Yeah, I think
season 4
might be the best.
I think I'm right. Season 4 is the best one.
You're
all welcome.
Best, yeah.
It's one of those objectively, season 4 is the best one. I have a different favorite one, but season 4 is the best one.
Yeah.
Season 4 introduces all of my favorite things about the Venture Brothers, including Sphinx.
I want to point out one more joke in season 3 that associate with Dermot and his role in the world of the Venture Brothers, which is when 21 and 24 are chasing Hank, and 24 tackles Dermot. And it's this perfect juxtaposition of the world of super science adventure and the world that Dermot lives in, of where they say where Dermot's like, "You're not a Venture brother. Who are you?" And it's, "I'm Hank's friend." Hank doesn't have any friends. And then later on, they're like, if you were Brock's son, I don't think I would have caught you. And he goes, "Well, I couldn't run because I had a lighter up my ass." And 24 goes, "Now I believe you're Hank's friend."
Yeah.
I think
it's such a good joke.
And I'm sad we're gonna say goodbye to 24, but I do want to point out, I think it's hilarious that like by canonically, 24 is at least like 15 to 20 years older than 21.
It's so funny.
And
it's only holding you back.
And then like because of that, like he's probably one of the older henchmen in general, right? Like he's like in his 40s, and everyone else is probably like in their 20s or 30s, right? And then he's got to spend all of his time trying to kidnap these two annoying teenagers.
Right.
To the point where he's on a first name basis with them.
That's so true. And
My stanza!
My stanza! My
my dad's stanza!
Oh, Doug's gonna kill me!
And the funny thing is that he's like in his 30s to 40s, and he's like doing that first name thing where he's on a first name basis with his stepdad, right?
Yeah.
It's really funny. We didn't talk much about 20. Hilariously, considering that like we have themed these episodes after 21 and 24. But like...
Barely talked about them.
Yeah, like I think one of the funniest things about the show, to kind of wrap it up for the night, is like, and it's a thing that gets brought up again. Please watch the Steak Bentley video. But like, Jackson Public and Doc Hammer do obviously have a soft side for their nerds.
Yeah, oh yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
For their dorks, for their geeks, for the people like us who, and I think that's kind of why certain types of people latch on to the Venture Brothers, and why I'm still thinking about the Venture Brothers even 2 weeks after we finished it, which is that like, it's, despite everything, despite I think some of the show's kind of fumbles and how it doesn't kind of handle its heartfelt moments as well as I would like, it is made for a specific kind of person.
I think when you put it like that, I don't think it's that it fumbles its heartfelt moments. I think it just has a different style of heartfelt moments, and its heartfelt moments are 21 and 24 arguing whether Smurfs are mammals or not.
Absolutely, totally, yeah.
That's when you.
That's just 24/7.
That's when you latch on and you go, yeah, because what do the four of us do? We sit around. We sit around and talk about dumb shit.
Well, I was gonna say like that's my thing is like. Yeah, I think ultimately, like, if I could say anything negatively about the show, is that it does fumble the bag sometimes when it comes to that sort of, like, more emotional storytelling. And, like, I think if its priorities were different, that stuff could have landed. But also, it's a show, like, on the exchange, it is a show that never is phoning it in.
Right.
Yes.
It's
absolutely.
always,
the show is always written
heartfelt.
with complete enthusiasm and sincerity for every single thing they're doing. And, like, I'll take imperfect execution at the cost of, like, it just being a show that you can always tell they are so excited to be making.
Yeah, they are never, ever doing the obnoxious thing of, oh, your name is Doc Ock?
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. They never do that fucking annoying thing of being above it, right? Yeah. Like, they even, like, part of JJ's thing is that JJ thinks he's above this, and the show is always like, no, you're not. You are in it with the rest of us, idiot. And that's what the show is about, is that it's like, it's so loving and protective of its nerds, even if sometimes those nerds can be annoying to be around, right? Like, it's
we love
still
Dermot.
Yeah, we love Dermot, and we love 21 and 24.
And Dermot, hey, guess what, Dermot? You're a nerd too. I'm sorry, man. No one who brags about ninjutsu and owns nunchucks is not a nerd, okay?
Yeah. And it loves 21 and 24, and obviously it loves Billy and White, because it's literally the creator's self-insert characters.
Watching Ward, funny.
24 fading off into heaven, just, in another life, I could have been John Mulaney.
That would have been a really cool live-action film.
That's like...
Much like him, I lived in a room and ate saltines for 28 years! and that was before I met you, 21!
Oh, God. And that's what makes it good, though, right? Like, that's what sells it.
It's the way I was going to talk about this next week, but we'll talk, or whatever we do our last episode of the Venture Brothers, because we're probably going to do 3 at this point.
Oh,
but
God, fuck me.
What
7 in the movie are going to be its whole thing.
I wanted to say this, I'll say this now, and I can go into more depth of it later, is that we're never going to get Rusty telling his boys that he loves them, or having a genuine scene of affection, of unhindered affection between them.
Sure.
We're not going to get that. What we are going to get is a sham sheepdog, Ralph Wolf, see you tomorrow.
Right.
At the end of the day, hey, you know what? This was fun. We'll catch you tomorrow. We'll pick it up where we left off.
Yeah.
And that's its own kind of sentiment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's it. It's being comfortable with the people around you. Even the Steak Lane video says, it's family. It's people that you hate that drive you crazy, but you can't see yourself apart from.
Right.
And that's kind of what it boils down to. Is that at the end of the day, we're just going to pick this up tomorrow. It'll be a little bit different, but I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll pick up where we left off. And whatever dumb shit you're going to do to me tomorrow is what it's going to be.
Right.
And that's what I love about the Venture Brothers. Is that
absolutely.
It's at the end of the day, all of these people are on a first name basis with each other.
Yeah.
Despite everything,
everybody knows each other, and everybody's cool with each other, even though they're trying to kill each other, and even though they fight and they hate each other. They're still, it's still part of their routine. It's still part of their life. It's still a weird, fucked up friendship in its own way. It's the way you feel about this dumbass shithead asshole that you talk to all the time on your Discord server.
Yeah.
Or
which one?
So many of them.
It's the fact that Rusty and Monarch fucking hate each other. Why do they hate each other? Because if you ask them, they'll say because that one is an asshole.
That's right.
They just there's no grand reasoning behind it. They just fucking hate each other.
They just fucking hate it. And it's so, I don't know, it's so good to me. It's so much. And I think that's why the Venture Brothers is so appealing to so many people. Is because, if you're watching the Venture Brothers, you've got a friend who is the 21 to your 24, or vice versa.
These characters, 21.
What? Oh my god!
These characters just feel so real and personal. And hey, I know a guy just like that.
And also, it's a kind of show where you cannot shitpost a situation that you could not also just go, yeah, that would be in an episode of the show.
Yeah.
I'm writing my problematic age gap yaoi of 21 and 24. Just you can't hang with me. I'm old money. Dude, how old? So old. Old as balls.
I'm old money. Dude, you don't have any money.
You drive a Nissan Stanza.
I just don't think it'll work out. You don't have yaoi hands.
No, I think the ultimate dynamic of 21 and 24 is when 21 brings the Venture Brothers into the cocoon and to visit 24 while he's in the hospital. He just walks in. He's like, "Oh yeah, just come on in. We live in a cocoon with a bunch of men, so there's no way I'm masturbating." we'll talk about the season 4 where 21 is like, dude, I can't even masturbate with you around. Every time I bring out the lotion, it's, oh, hey, buddy, gonna rub one out?
Oh, so what you're reading there? Is that Yuri? You're on ice. No.
No! They don't even fuck in that show!
21 just like, yeah, I sucked this girl off and like, it was like Nitro Pepsi. And 24 is just like, what the fuck is Nitro Pepsi?
We finally brought it back.
I wasn't alive for that one, jackass.
I love Saturn, by the way. I love that you're trying so hard to do Ray Romano, and it is just coming out as like the ideal Kermit.
That's true.
I'm gonna be real. I'm not trying to do Ray Romano. I'm basically just trying to do Kermit.
Well, it's working.
It's working.
The thing is, if you go too far with your Ray Romano, it does just become Kermit.
It just loops around to being Kermit.
Well, unlike Ray Romano, 24's voice is not that deep.
I love that the show, it takes 3 seasons for the show to actually acknowledge, yeah, 24 is just a Ray Romano impression. Like Monarch says, oh, you mean the guy that sounds like Ray Romano?
It's so much funnier when we reveal that, like, him maskless, he looks like Jerry Seinfeld.
Oh,
There's
God.
layers to it.
There's so many layers to the joke.
That's one of my favorite parts about Venture Brothers. Every time they make a joke, and you and a friend are laughing, you're probably laughing at a different punchline that they have layered into the same joke.
Oh, absolutely.
Because
so brilliant.
Much like one of the sitcoms I'm a joke about, someday I will end.
it's just... That's the thing, is like, you'll see a character and you'll say, oh, that's a funny looking design, or that's a funny looking name. Then you look into it like, oh, that name is an obscure album from the 1970s.
Right.
That Jackson Public listened to when he was 5 and like became obsessed with.
And it haunted his brain forever.
Like
exactly.
we're gonna look it up and like we're gonna see Trucules on like a fucking like album from like the B-side of King Crimson.
No, it is. I'm convinced he is only called Trucules because they asked lawyers if he could be named Tarkus, and they said no.
Yeah.
All this to say, because I never got the chance to mention this episode, even though I've said it a lot in private when we've been talking about the show. Ultimately, Venture Brothers, more so than being about failure, is a show about the moral superiority of listening to prog rock.
That's correct.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about Perchance to Dean next week.
Oh, yeah.
Which means at some point in the near future, they'll say like, "Hey, we got season 8, and they're gonna release a teaser trailer, and it's gonna be done like to I don't know, what's a good Act 2 song from Proto Man that'd be good? The Hounds.
The Hounds for sure.
Yeah,
I
Breaking
think,
out.
I think they would just. Here's the thing: if they had the money and everything, they would just do what they have, what has been proven you can do. And they would license a Yes song like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Yeah.
Oh, could you imagine if fucking season 8, the trailer to season 8 is set to Roundabout?
I literally can.
I'm just imagining season 8 cold open, like silence for a few seconds, and you just hear, "I've seen all good people turn their heads each way, so satisfied I'm on my way."
Oh my
I think
I'm tickled by the idea of this happening, as Ben describes it, and the cold open ends, and it immediately cuts to the Monarch going, "What the hell is JoJo?"
I don't know what this meme means yet, and I'm too afraid to ask at this point.
That's your girlfriend.
The crashing forces of the JoJo fan base and the Venture Brothers fan base would probably end the Earth.
This is
those are the same fan base.
That's an old Vine meme. It got popularized by that McElroy boy from that podcast I'd listened to. You mean the one you've been trying to get me to listen to and I haven't? Yeah, that one.
I love that we live in a world where the Venture Brothers, Team Fortress 2, and Metal Gear Solid all existed in the same timeline.
That's
absolutely.
correct.
Do you think Sheila listens to 21's podcast?
Yes.
No, I think she started to after she got married.
I I could believe that.
So, like, I genuinely think she's just like, you know what, I should do something for
I need to know. I need to learn how to get. I need to learn how to get closer to the minions.
I need to learn to care about it. His henchmen, just like he does for my little Muppets. And that's,
well, I know he makes all the other henchmen listen to his podcast, so I may as well be abreast of what's going on in there.
That's how the throuple starts. She's just like, oh, 21 is such a doll.
I'm going to say 24 does not listen to 21's podcast.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Not a chance.
Absolutely
No,
not.
and I think the reason why...
Dude, I'm dead. I have better things to do than listen to your shitty podcast.
100%. I think it's because he edits it, so he does not want to ever actually listen to the episode.
Did you make me do this?
Actually, no, that's canon. If we listen to one of the Christmas specials, I'll send you the link later.
Oh, God.
I've got a date with Marilyn Monroe's ghost. I'm not listening to your nerd shit.
When did you get a Mac? You should be using a Dell.
Dude, the Macs have better write speeds.
That's exactly...
I am so glad I am dead, so I don't have to deal with this shit anymore.
Okay.
Enjoy not being able to use MS Paint, dumbass.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we only got 3 seasons of Venture Brothers done.
It almost took us 3 hours.
It only took us 3 hours per season.
That's about half of the actual episode count, so that's fine.
Yeah, season 4 is going to be the albatross around our neck, and then 5, 6, and 7 are going to speed by.
Yeah,
that's right.
If we do another 3-hour episode next time, guaranteed an entire hour and a half of that's going to be just season 4.
Yeah.
That's why I keep saying season 4 is the best one.
I think I'm inclined to at least say, even though season 1 is my favorite, much like Oates said, it's just my favorite. I know objectively it's not the best one.
The best is 4. My favorite is 7.
That makes sense.
I think I am also... Yeah, the best is 4. My favorite is 1.
Right.
Totally. I'm Oates, and the best is 4. And my favorite might be 2. Or 7. I don't remember.
Well, I'm Sara, and I have immaculate taste. So the best is 4.
Whatever.
And my favorite one is 4.
Oh,
Look at that.
Yeah, that's, you know what that is? That's just cowardice, is what that is.
No, that's me having a big brain. All right?
No, Sarah is brave for having been among the 4 of us the one who goes, no, I'll let you 3 have fun coming up with reasons why anyone should consider for even a second that this season is worth comparing to 4.
That's right.
Listen to her. Her favorite is the one that's objectively the best. Thanks, Skullhole.
It's like saying your favorite Metal Gear's the 3rd one. Like, yeah, dude, I get it.
Yeah, we all know. That's right.
Look forward to the next episode where I have practiced painstakingly to be 21 for the entire episode instead of 25.
Look, all I'm saying, 21, is you need to get yourself a girl whose favorite is Metal Gear Solid 2. That's an artist right there. I'm not fighting
There's
one
no
of
girl
those.
out there who's like that. It's too perfect.
I'd have better luck finding a unicorn, and Bud, I'm not a virgin anymore. Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it.
Then you just get Doc being like, everyone knows that 4 is the best Metal Gear.
Rusty would think 4 is the best Metal Gear. Yeah.
Come on, it has the best graphics. It's still only 2010 when the series ends, so the 5th one hasn't come out yet.
My final contribution to this episode is that Brock thinks that Metal Gear Solid 1 is the best one.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Rusty thinks 4 is the best one.
Brock much like I'm sorry, I'll let you continue a second. Brock, much like Old Snake, has dreams in PS1 low poly.
That's correct. That's correct.
I think my argument here is that Hank should like Metal Gear Solid 3, but he
likes 5.
He's insane, and Peace Walker and V is his favorite.
That's correct.
I resent that remark as God's most favorite Peace Walker defender.
No,
God's specialist boy.
Saturn,
you want your favorite game to be the same as Hank.
Saturn,
Hank's the best character in the show.
Saturn, it's not that it's Peace Walker that makes him insane. It's that he likes Peace Walker and V equally.
It's because listen,
Hank
would like 5 because it's got Kiefer Sutherland in it.
Yeah.
Hey, no.
It's a guy from 24.
It's got that guy from 24. and then meanwhile, his favorite's Peace Walker because he's like, oh man, Dr. Strangelove is such a hot ass. It's like, Hank, she's a lesbian. She's from Greece?
Sara,
See?
you had the exact same joke I did.
There you go. And Dean would like 3.
Dean would like 3. Dermot's is, I don't know, Metal Gear Solid is gay. And then secretly it's 2.
And secretly it's 2. Absolutely.
If the show went late enough chronologically, it would be Revengeance.
Dean has only ever played 3 because he wants to play it chronologically, and it made him cry so hard he never wanted to play any other game.
That's correct.
Dean would absolutely
emotionally disturbed him, and he also got really horny for the boss.
Dean would also be the kind of psychopath who looks at Metal Gear Solid like, I'm going to play this in chronological order.
Exactly.
And like I said, he got like psychopathically horny for the boss, and it gave him like way too many.
Just like everybody else in Metal Gear
Universe. Like everybody else in Metal Gear Solid, like the series.
Just like everybody in Metal Gear Solid universe, he also did not understand the will of the boss.
That's correct.
Well, no, the problem is because much like his father, when they render the boss in Venture Vision, she has that nose.
That's right.
Oh, that's true.
She would have the nose. She would have the Hank nose. Yeah.
You know what? Snake would be like very similarly to Venture is like an aging rock star because he was a video game character.
And then Dean has a really uncomfortable dream where he sees the boss, and then it's Hank with giant titties and a form-fitting spacesuit, and he has really uncomfortable feelings about it.
He's in the field of flowers, and the boss turns around, and it's just Hank with like big old teeny titties, and she goes, "Hey, Hank, do you know?"
It's just the bit. Listen, from when Hank was. When Molotov was babysitting the boys, and the dream Molotov took off her top, and her tits were just Hank heads.
All right,
Kill Pop.
All right, Dino. You have to choose loyalty to Team Venture or loyalty to Giant Boy Detective.
Fuck, we have to end it there. That's the best way to end it.
That's the best way to end it. Ben, take us out.
Thank you to Mr. Who's our background music. You can follow me on Twitter at SportsPodcast. I'll say radioinactivity. You can follow all of us at everywhere and whatever and blah blah blah. Join our Discord and be
insane with us there.
Patreon.com/thegorge. Sarah and I are streaming Alan Wake 2 throughout December, so check that out.
If you go into the Discord, I will be doing Christmas films.
That's right.
Probably once a week. The next one that I'm going to be doing is Like a Dragon, the movie by Takashi Miike.
You have to join and skew the votes so that I can guarantee that Tokyo Godfathers will be in that lineup. That's just, I'm not offering any rewards for that except for the reward of getting to watch Tokyo Godfathers.
Operators are standing by.
I'm on the telephone.
Fuck Cartoon Network and Adult Swim and everyone involved for not renewing Venture Brothers every fucking year.
Fuck Rusty Venture.
It's always his fault.
It's always fault. Yeah.
That's right.
I wish that person a horrible Minecraft.
Fuck whoever blew me up. Though I am hanging out here with Satoshi Kon, so I guess it's all cool. Did you know Tokyo Godfathers is a really good movie?
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.